The meeting of the Tinley Park Plan Commission to order and begin with a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Croner,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Engel,
Here.
Manny,
Here.
Gatto,
Here.
Gray, Augustiniak, Shaw.
Here. We have a quorum and we will proceed. Before the first item, do we have any communications this evening? Okay. First item on here is...
Hey, Mr. Chair, one thing.
Yes.
Our young man back here, where's he at?
Over here.
Come out here for just a second. We just want to let everybody know here, this young man is in charge, or I don't know if you're in charge, or at least he tapes and sends off the meetings to everybody at home so you can live stream them. But he also won a very nice honor this past week, or last week?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, he was Student of the Week for the Steve Cochran radio host. So. Plus, he goes to Marion too, so not a bad school. So, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, first we're going to look at the approval of the minutes of the October 5th, 2017 regular meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Do we have any edits or corrections on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes for the October 5th, 2017 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. So we have a very packed agenda this evening, and we have a fair amount of folks in the audience here. So in the interest of moving the meeting along tonight, keeping everything proceeding quickly, I'd like to just run through a few housekeeping items here. As I said, we have a very heavy agenda. We have 2 public hearings this evening and 2 workshops. So with that, I would ask that all the people wishing to speak this evening, and as commissioners as well, I ask that we all recognize decorum. Make sure that you're recognized by the chair before you speak. We want to make sure we don't have any crosstalk going on this evening. A couple of other items. The first 2 items are public hearings. And again, anybody who would like to speak in a public hearing will need to be sworn in. And before you speak, ask that you simply state your name for the record. There will be, for the public hearings, there will be public comment within each of the public hearings. The comments for those should be on point and concise, and they should relate to the matter at hand in the petition only in the public hearings. The last 2 items this evening are workshops. And the workshops, just to clarify for everybody, they're not public hearings. No decisions or votes will be made for those workshops. The purpose of the workshops is for the commissioners and the staff to work through any questions, concerns, or other matters in advance of a public hearing. So there will generally be no questions or comments within the workshop. It's for the commissioners and staff to work through all the details. So just so that everybody's clear on the difference between the items tonight. There will be public comment at the end of the meeting, as there is in any public meeting, and you can speak on any topic as you'd like. Ask that we keep it within the standard formats that the village has established for public comment, but there will be leeway depending on the need. And that's about it, other than I would ask that everybody this evening maintain order and show respect for other folks when they're speaking. So with that, we can move on to the very first public hearing we have, which is Banging Gavel, 6811 Hickory Street. This is for variances site plan and plat of subdivision and variances. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now open for public hearing. And do we have anybody this evening who wishes to speak in the public hearing? Banging gavel and people from the public?
Well, if need be, I will. It's-
Someone's probably going to ask you a question.
Right, so, yes.
I stand up.
Sure.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth?
I do.
So, confirmation of notices being published and mailed in accordance with state law. So I have the notices here. I looked them over earlier. Thank you very much. And with that, we will proceed to the staff presentation.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So as mentioned, item number 1 tonight is banging gavel, and they're requesting site plan approval of the final plat of subdivision, and some variances for a pergola and a proposed freestanding sign. So the summary of the open items from the workshop is as follows: that variances are needed for the proposed pergola and the freestanding frame sign, specifically in relation to the height of the sign and the location of the sign. And it's the location of the pergola as well that requires a variance. And also we added approval of the landscape plan because there is one outstanding comment from the village's landscape architecture consultant having to do with some landscaping in the public frontage. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. Just to clarify the summary of the open items here, we did discuss concerns about sight lines around the pergola last time. We did some measurements that you'll see here in a minute in the report, showing the distance between the pergola and Oak Park Avenue, as well as the pergola and the curb cut just south in the parking lot of Oak Park Avenue. And also the Plan Commission requested a rendering of what this area, the beer garden, may look like from Oak Park Avenue, and you'll see that in the presentation as well as you have a printout at your seats there. The variance for the freestanding frame sign, we had discussed that as well at the workshop, and there wasn't any outstanding questions about the sign last time. And again, as I mentioned, number 3, the landscape architect had one outstanding item with the request for something being revised on the landscape. Here's the site. This is the historic boat building. This is on the National Register, so they have strict standards for when they're doing changes to the building itself. They do want to add an outdoor beer garden as well as do some subdivision of the property to formalize the ownership of the parking lot versus the building and beer garden versus the plaza you see in the corner here at Hickory and Oak Park Avenue. This is the front of the building, again, very historic, and they will be working on some interior remodeling and be very delicate with any changes to the exterior of the building. If you recall, they were here earlier this year for a special use permit to operate a brewery in the space, and that was approved earlier this year. They're looking to open sometime next year. Here is an aerial image of the site. Here's the zoning of the site and the surrounding area. This particular site is known DC for downtown 4, and the surrounding zoning in the dark purple is also DC. You can see to the west in the yellow is some R4, which is single-family residential. There is one multi-family building just to the west of this along Hickory Street. On the other side of the tracks in the dark purple is more downtown core zoning, and the light pink that you see up near the train station parking lot is a civic zoning district. Here is a rendering of the pergola from the last set of plans. And they're going to be using this pergola to have some entertainment performances as well as so this pergola will be used for entertainment performances, which is on point with the village's brand for music and live amplified. So we like that they're incorporating music into their beer garden. Here's the site plan. And the proposed pergola. You can see it's about 7 feet from the property line along Oak Park Avenue, that east property line. So a variance is required because the required setback is 20 feet from the space. measurements that we requested at the last plan commission meeting. I also overlaid the site plan on an aerial image sheet to get a better idea of what that will look like approximately. Try to scale it as best as I can, what that might look like in relation to the rest of the site around it. You can see you've got the 7 feet between the pergola and the property line, and about 12 feet between the property line and the curb of Oak Park Avenue on the west side of Oak Park Avenue. Additionally, you've got about 40 feet from the south corner of the pergola to the curb cut. So we don't think that this will be an issue for line of sight. That's definitely a concern in a lot of cases where we have these front yard setback requests, and I think it was a great question to ask. This is the proposed plat of subdivision. I used color to show you the division of the lots here. The Banging Gavel property will be lot 2, which is in yellow. That will be composed of the building and the beer garden area. Lot 3 is the green area, and that's the existing public plaza. And the red is lot 1, and that's all but one of the parking spaces you see in the existing parking lot today. That will become a municipal. Yes, the yellow lot has 1 parking space for the dwelling unit inside the building, because there is a parking requirement for dwelling units. Here's the proposed sign. The sign needs a variance for the height, which is 7 feet, where 4 feet is allowed for this particular type of sign, as well as the location is right near the property line, which you can see that yellow line, and the star is approximately where the proposed sign will go. We have had some other signs in the Legacy District, both new and existing, that are close to the property line like this. So that's something to think about, as well as the best location for the sign on this property. They are proposing some significant landscaping improvements around the sign and around the site as a whole as part of this beer garden project. And overall, if they were to choose a different type of sign, such as a round monument sign, as found in the Legacy Code, I just want to show you that real quick. That would be sign number 14 in this diagram here from the Legacy Code. They actually would be allowed a larger sign and a height of 8 feet if they went number 14 rather than number 11 like they're proposing. So I believe they chose number 11 because it fits with the character of the historic building. It doesn't feel as bulky as number 14. So it's something to consider if we want to have signs like number 11 fit the character of the building, because this would be something that should be considered with the variance. And again, here's that location of the sign shown on the site plan. Here is the rendering that the petitioner supplied of the outdoor area. This shows the proposed pergola, fencing, seating. You can see the bar area with that little roof. And I believe they also put some of the proposed landscaping in here for you to see what that may look like. And that's all I have for the staff report. If you'd like me to go over the findings for you, I'd be happy to do so. Otherwise, they're in the report.
Okay, no, not at this time. So, thank you, Stephanie. The next item for the public hearing is petitioner presentation. If you have a presentation you'd like to provide there.
I really don't think I could add anything that Stephanie offered.
Okay, excellent. Yes, once again, thank you very much, and I appreciate your artist, whoever did that. That was excellent, and really top quality work, and is exactly what I was asking for. I think it really gives a good view. So we did not have anybody from the public who wish to speak, but if there's anyone who still has any questions or comments.
I do have one more thing to add. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay.
With the landscaping, I forgot about it because in this rendering it doesn't show exactly where the fence would be going. There is going to be about 3 feet or so between where the fence and the brick sidewalk are located, and that's the area where there won't be any landscaping. It's just going to be sort of 3-foot grass area, and that's where the landscape architect suggested that they add some like grasses or perennials in that area just
Okay.
to spruce it up a little bit. However, it is in the public frontage, and typically there are requirements for public frontages such as street trees or landscaping in the case where there is room between a sidewalk.
Okay.
So it's something for the plan commission to consider if you'd like to make that a condition
So, yeah, I had it written down as the open item. That's the extent of it, that the landscape architect was recommending something other than grass.
Yeah, even like ornamental grasses or just something, because you only have 3 feet to plant in, so you can't fit anything really substantial there, but you are gonna end up with sort of just nothing there, between the sidewalk and the fence potentially.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, again, we didn't have any objectors here, and so there's nothing to rebut. So with that, I would just like to run down the commission, see if they had any questions for either staff or for the petitioners. So starting on this end, any questions?
No questions.
I just had one question. Now looking at this rendering, based on the rendering, it looks like where you have the pergola, then you have seating and the bar. Is that elevated?
No, it's not. Are you asking if the bar, are you asking if the seating by the bar is elevated?
Well, like the whole section, because I don't. Well,
There's
know,
like a wall.
I think it's an
that wall,
optical
that's what's throwing
illusion.
me off. Okay.
No, there's, what you're looking.
That's just the
Yeah, so
pavers.
there's like a stamped concrete path that goes down the middle.
I see. It's
Towards
just.
the bar area.
Yeah, I see. It's kind of. I think it's kind of.
It looks like a wall in the picture.
Right. It looks optical illusion.
This,
yeah, you
the
know.
pergola's raised, right?
Yeah.
That's just the corner of the pergola.
Right.
Stamped concrete.
But I still a comment for the stage itself for the pergola. Are you going to have any provisions to allow it to be accessible if someone's going to be a musician that needs a ramp to get up to it, if they're not able to step onto the
Oh, I see what you're saying.
ADA accessibility.
right accessibility.
For the pergola, so it's Anybody's saying that it's a member of the family. We can make a portable ramp, I mean, that's, to
Right.
accommodate that, sure.
Okay, I just wanted to note that just to make sure, because obviously it's a public facility or a restaurant. It has to be accessible to everyone.
Yeah, we could do
That's as
a
far as it
portable ramp that
goes.
we use when necessary.
Correct.
A little bit far.
Yeah, I've seen those, in the past. That's all my questions.
Don't even
So,
think about
Stephanie,
putting down.
would ADA requirements of that sort of follow the engineering review or department review?
We look into the specifics
Mhm.
during building conversation.
Okay, so if it were required, then it would follow necessarily that condition. Starting at the far end?
I'm good.
Okay.
Just watching Paula.
I'm not a technical wizard, obviously, this
Obviously.
is the mic out of the ground, so.
Yeah, we've got some cords here.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, everybody at home. We will
Uh,
call her over to the microphone.
We'll speak loud.
Guys, no questions. I just want to say that it's been a privilege to work with you guys. So the degree of professionalism and what you bring to the table here every time we ask a question, it makes our job a whole lot easier. And thank you. And we're wishing you the best of luck.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate everything that you have here, and it's been very thorough. So I do not have any questions for you.
I'd love to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if it's open.
With that, do I have a motion to close I'm sorry. It is a public hearing, so if we have anybody from the public who would like to offer comment within the public hearing? Okay. Seeing none, we move forward. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Croner, second Commissioner Stanton, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Now, at this time, do we have any need from the commissioners to run through the findings of fact, or have you read them? Do we have any additions or questions for that?
No questions.
So, at this time, I would entertain a motion.
I'd be glad to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to grant the petitioner, James Reichert of Banging Gavel, site plan approval for an outdoor seating area and related landscape improvements, and recommend that the village board grant approval for the final plat of subdivision and the following variances for the property at 6811 Hickory Street in the downtown core zoning district. Number one, a 3-foot variance from section 12.4.e, table 4.e1 of the zoning ordinance where the maximum height for a freestanding frame sign is 4 feet. This variance will allow for a 7-foot tall freestanding frame sign. Number 2, a 9-foot variance from section 12.4.e, table 4.e.1 of the zoning ordinance where a freestanding frame must be set back 10 feet from the property line. This variance will allow for the freestanding frame sign to be set back 1 foot from the north property line. Number 3, a 13-foot variance from section 12.2.a.9 from the table 2.a.6 of the zoning ordinance where an accessory structure is required to be set back 20 feet from a primary street. This variance will allow a pergola at a 7-foot setback from the east property line. This motion would come with the following condition, that the landscape plan be revised to show additional plant material per the recommendation of the village's landscape architect in the public frontage between the east property line and the current sidewalk.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Curran, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Crowner,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you going through the entire process, and this will be on the next village board agenda.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, next item on this evening's agenda is another public hearing. Item number 2, Aldi 16000 Harlem Avenue, a public hearings for a special use permit. Do I have a motion to open this public hearing?
A motion.
Motion, Commissioner Manny, second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gatto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now open. Do we have the petitioner available, and as well as anybody, any objectors or interested persons who would like to speak on this matter this evening? You swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth? I do, thank you. And I have looked at the public notices. Appreciate that. And we will move ahead with the public presentation.
So you confirmed that the notices were?
Yes, I apologize for not
Just wanna make
saying
sure.
that. I have confirmed that the notices are good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Number 2 tonight is Aldi. The address for the new Aldi location is 16000 Harlem Avenue. It is going in a portion of the former Eurofresh space, and they're seeking a special use permit for a substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza planned unit development. They're seeking this because when you have a PUD and you want to essentially get a variance within a PUD, it's called a substantial deviation. In this case, you can see in section 7 of the village's code where we talk about PUDs, an increase to the number or size of signs constitutes a substantial deviation. So they're actually looking for a larger sign as well as more signs. And we'll see that here in a minute in the visuals. At the workshop that we had at the last meeting, the Plan Commission requested a comparison of the proposed sign to a sign that would meet the village's regulations. And they gave us both a sign that would be meeting the height regulation of 7 feet tall, as well as a sign that would meet more so the square footage of the village's regulations. Here's that comparison for you. The top image is the proposed sign. The middle image is a sign that meets all village regulations, including that maximum of 7 feet in height. And the last image is a sign that would meet the square footage of pretty close, within about 10 square feet of what they'd be allowed. You can also see the additional signs. They are seeking also this substantial deviation have more signs, so they want a total of 4 signs where just 1 sign is allowed because they don't have multiple frontages. They just have one east-facing frontage toward Harlem Avenue. So you can see they have what they call discs on the right side of the screen there. One is a leaf, one's an apple, and one is a wine glass. And then they have their main Aldi sign on the main part of the facade. The bottom sign you see here is 12 feet tall by about 10 or 11 feet wide, and is about 120 square feet. They would be allowed about 110 square feet. The sign in the middle is 7 feet tall and about 41 square feet, so it's significantly smaller, but this one meets all village codes. And due to the way that Aldi does their signs, they're limited based on their height requirements here. So even though they can have a lot more square footage based on the village's regulations, they're limited by that height. And just due to the nature of their logo, that's sort of their limiting factor here is the sign height. And again, the proposed sign is 15 feet tall and about 190 square feet. Here's that proposed sign again. Here's a photo we took right before the last staff report went out at the workshop. And you can see they left the cutout there to be about the size of the proposed sign. Here is the zoning. Just to give you an idea, this property is zoned B3. It's part of the Park Center Plaza Shopping Center and Plain Unit Development. To the south, we have more B3 with the Sam's Club, the current Aldi store, Steak and Shake, and the former Kmart in that particular area. To the west, we have a church in the R4 zoning district. We have some R5 or R6 in the darker brown to the southwest. And we have B2 across the street at the Tinley Park Plaza Shopping Center, where you have Waltz, Planet Fitness, Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, and also we've got Starbucks and Blaze Pizza and Noodles and Company businesses like that across the street. Here is the proposed signage again. Again, this is the largest sign, the original proposed sign, and the halo lit discs at the bottom. The petitioner did supply us with these images of lighting to give you an idea of what those discs will look like when they're illuminated. So you can see they'll have sort of a soft glow around them. In the staff report, we looked at what was allowed by the code and what the proposed sign was and what the difference between those were. Here you can see they're proposing 4 wall signs. That's 3 more than are allowed by code. You can see that the maximum square footage is 110. In total, they're proposing about 253 square feet, which is about 142 square feet total more than what's allowed by code. And the maximum sign height is 7 feet, where their main sign is 15 feet. The discs are about 5'2". We also wanted to give you a reference showing the Cup Food sign. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't talk about the Eurofresh and the Aldi sign here. We wanted to show you a couple different comparisons for signs around the area. Eurofresh was the previous tenant. They took up the entire tenant space. Now keep in mind, Aldi's only taking a portion of what Eurofresh took up in that tenant space. And Eurofresh had quite a bit of signage. I believe it was actually 500 square feet when I found the permits. So not sure how they got that exactly. We couldn't find a variance or any records of a special approval, but certainly they had a large sign there on their front facade. We also wanted to compare to the existing Aldi, and I believe that one was similar to the sign that they showed at about 40 or 50 square feet. Before Eurofresh was Cup Foods, and they also had a very large sign. In fact, the sign overall with the Cub and the Foods was about 17.5 feet tall. So sort of comparable to the size of the letters at Waltz across the street. If you've ever seen that one up close, it's pretty large. And we wanted to show this as a comparison as well. And the petitioner put up a plywood piece in that hole between now and the last meeting, just to give you an idea of what that smallest sign would look like on the face of the building. So this would be the one that meets all the village codes and the smallest option. Here is a Google Street View looking back at the current Aldi store. And just to give you an idea, this is, I believe, within about 40 or 50 feet of the distance that the new Aldi store would have. There is not an outlot in front of this particular Aldi store, so it has clear visibility to Harlem Avenue as of right now, because there's not something blocking it. We did want to note that in some views, the new Aldi store will have the Mattress Firm and Chipotle outlet blocking the view from Harlem Avenue in some cases. So although this store is within, 40 or 50 feet of being the same setback from Harlem Avenue, there's no obstructions. That tree right there is about the only thing that would be blocking it, and they do have a relatively small sign at that location. Also, the Sam's Club is there, and we've got that sign on here for you as well. This sign is a 10 by 10, and it's overall 14 feet tall from the bottom point to the top point. So this sign is in excess of that 70-foot requirement as well.
So
Stephanie, is that a newer sign for Sam's?
I know they just did some work on the facade. It could be a newer sign, but I believe it's the same size as the previous sign, if that's the case.
But and that sign only takes up approximately 100 square feet of sign face area, correct?
This one does, but they have a couple other signs on the building as
Well, there
well.
is one other sign there, and Aldi's asking the same thing, which I understand. But the one question I have is, what is the length, the total frontage length of the store that Aldi's going into? Because I'm looking at the drawing here, and it says 114 feet, but I'm not so sure that that's the entire Aldi store. I'm a little bit confused. I'm just trying to find out what the exact total frontage is that Aldi's going to take up in this building.
It's 114 feet.
It is 114 feet? So it's,
Just, again, to move the meeting along here, let's finish the staff presentation, and then we'll go through questions on the petition.
it wasn't a question, sir. It was a point of reference because there is no square footage. I wanted to clarify about the 114 square feet.
I want to get through the rest
Sure.
of the presentation and then move on to the future.
And it's a good point to bring up the 114, because in my report I reference it being 110 that they're allowed. So technically they would be allowed 114 in that case, because it's 1 foot for every foot of linear frontage. But we had a different measurement on our file. Okay, and then I want to reference also the Planet Fitness, Tile Shop, and Dollar Tree across on the east side of Harlem. This is actually significantly closer to Harlem and also does not have an outlet between the building blocking the view. And these signs are in conformance as far as I'm aware. I know Planet Fitness is at least a newer one. But these signs also have their own regulations within this PUD. I know we talked a little bit about this last time in the workshop, that if this planned unit development wanted to make their own special sign regulations that were a little bit different than the village code, they would be allowed to do that. But because it's of other ownership in some parcels, like McDonald's and Portillo's, and then all these parcels are separate from the rest of the shopping center, they'd have to all get together and collaborate on what they wanted those regulations to be for the development as a whole. So it's a little more cumbersome to try and get everyone together to do that, which is why they're here today asking for just the substantial variation for their sign rather than a whole new sign plan. But we did do that with the Tinley Park Plaza across the street here, just so you know. So they're actually allowed 1.5 of square feet per foot rather than just 1. So they essentially have a little bit of a bonus for some of these stores in this development that you wouldn't get in the regular village code. So with that, I will leave you with this last graphic showing the 3 different options, and I would again be happy to go through the findings of fact for you if you'd like. Otherwise, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Okay, excellent. So Commissioner Corona, did you have more on that point that you wanted to follow up on?
Yeah, if we can go back 2 slides to the other, that slide there. How far back from Harlem is that plaza versus where Aldi is currently? Because I think the new Aldi store is going to be, I think last week or last meeting we said it was 87 feet closer to Harlem. Is this plaza similar in distance as a new Aldi store from Harlem?
So I have in my report here that the Planet Fitness is about 320 feet east of Harlem Avenue, and the Planet Fitness is about 220 feet closer to Harlem than the proposed Aldi sign. So they're over 200 feet closer to Harlem overall.
The Planet Fitness is?
The Planet Fitness is. And
From the current Aldi store or the new Aldi store?
the new Aldi location. And the current one is Aldi feet. So like I said, it's over a 200-foot difference how close the Planet Fitness is versus the new Aldi store.
Okay. And just one point of clarification here, the Sam sign is 100 square feet with 357 feet of storefronts. And Aldi is asking for 190 square feet with 114 square feet of storefront, correct?
Correct, but Sam's Club has a couple other signs on the building as well that we did not include in the calculation.
Understood, as does Aldi, to be fair. My whole point is, even going back to the last meeting, is that we have to be fair to everyone, especially on that side of the road. Sam's Club was given this. In my opinion, I understand that Aldi should have a bigger sign than what it is now. I have no problem with that. But I just think that the sign they're proposing is way too out of character with the building, and it creates the noise that we tried to get rid of when we passed at the last year when we passed with the zoning, with the sign ordinance. I think a sign similar in square feet to what Sam's is, to be fair to Sam's, because they are a good neighbor as well, and they're supportive of the Tinley Park community, and the Tinley Park residents are supportive of Sam, just like they're supportive of Aldi. So, in my opinion, again, I think this proposed sign is too large, but I have no problem going with something in between what is allowed by the law, or by the current regulations, and what they're asking for. Something similar in scope to what Sam's is, only because they're competing against each other, and we cannot continue to show favoritism to different folks because they come up here. We have to be fair. It has to be a level playing field for everybody. And while I'm very happy that Aldi is investing in our community, and that store is going to be one of the newest stores in the nation with the new store plan design, we appreciate that. I think Tinley has certainly rallied behind Aldi and supported this store since day one of its inception. But I really think we have to be fair here to your neighbors a little bit further south, or a little bit north right now, a little bit further south when you guys move. So my thought is we come to some type of compromise in between, guys.
And did you see the compromise on the third one? Where
Yeah.
So it's really only looking for one variation, that would be height.
Exactly, and I think that's more
Getting to what
palpable
you're
than what the big gigantic thing is there, in my opinion.
Excellent point. Commissioner Stan?
Nope, I agree.
Commissioner Beck?
I agree.
On this end? Any questions, comments?
No question for me.
Okay. Moving on to the petitioner's presentation. Would you like to step up?
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Streets. I'm with Doyle Signs here on behalf of Aldi Foods. I'm with Scott Cater with Aldi Foods. He's a construction manager, here to make our case with regard to this request. Aldi is in the process of remodeling and improving the old Cub Foods Eurofresh market space. This is a large capital investment, and an important part of this investment is to provide reasonable and effective identification signage on the storefront. This storefront is located approximately 540 feet from the Harlan Avenue frontage. The previous business that occupied this facility had 555 square feet of primary signage above the main entrance and 187 additional square feet of secondary signage. There's no record of anyone in the village of Tinley Park complaining about the size of the previous large signs. The current Tinley Park sign ordinance restricts wall sign area by zoning district, gross tenant floor area, and the lineal frontage of a business. The ordinance provides no relief for businesses that are set back long distances from the property line, as many other communities do. This lack of relief permits a business that is located at the property line to have the same size sign as one setback over 500 feet. This restriction is unreasonable and inappropriate. Aldi's proposed sign area is less than half the size of the previous business located in the same space, and is more than reasonable and appropriate in relationship to the size and the setback of the storefront. If approved, I believe this request will be in harmony with the intent of your sign code to allow for appropriate signage and visible identification for all businesses. I do not agree that the sign appears too big and creates too much noise on the storefront. I'd like to open it up to any questions everyone has.
Okay. Did we have any questions from the commissioners?
Good.
Okay. I appreciate that you put together the comparison of the perfectly conforming sign, the proposed sign, and then something that was exactly what I was looking for. And I will say that I genuinely agree with the consensus from commissioners about splitting the difference and it being something reasonable. Stephanie, if we could, that middle-sized one, you clarify with a 12-foot sign, we would be looking, it's still a height deviation of 5 feet. And that is about 120 square feet. When you add that to, on its own, that is still a deviation, correct?
Yes, because it's over the maximum, and I was actually just calculating the new total. If they were to go with the metal sign, it would be a total of 183.6 square feet for the discs and for the middle of the sign.
Okay. And with
By middle, I mean the middle-sized one, not
Yes.
the one on the bottom of your screen.
with the corrected 114 feet of frontage, that would give them an allowable 114, is that correct?
Okay.
The square footage with the corrected linear would be 114 square feet.
That's kind of very good deal.
And so we're 50 something.
Yes.
All right. So I think we have all the questions answered, facts in place there. Any final comments or questions from the petitioners?
No, I would just like to repeat that I do believe if this is approved as requested, with the signage that's proposed in the top portion of that layout, that it will be within the intent of your code to allow for proper signage and visible identification for a business.
Okay.
Can I just make one statement?
Yes, sir.
And again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but the Sam's building is further back than what the new Aldi sign is. The Sam's storefront is almost twice the size of the Aldi storefront. And as a town, we have to be fair to everybody. And in my own opinion, I think the consensus of the Plan Commission is we have to be fair, consistent and uniform and fair. And we're giving you a deviation, I think, potentially, not to what you want, but something that we think is more within the character of the town. So we're not trying to thwart you from doing what you want to do, it's just we want to bring it in a little bit. We appreciate your exuberance and putting that big A up there because it's, I mean, that A is becoming, as Scott knows, that A is becoming more and more well-known throughout the country. I think probably in a couple of years it'll be the second or third largest grocer in the country by a number of stores, which is fantastic, but we've got to be consistent within our town. So appreciate what you've done here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask one more question too?
Absolutely.
Just to reiterate too, the sign that you're proposing, you've already purchased, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what's the difference in the square footage between the proposed sign and the one at the bottom of the main sign? Do you have those calculations?
I don't have that handy, but if you give me a moment, I can figure that out.
According to these calculations.
So 60-something square feet is the difference?
3 feet taller.
3 feet taller. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It'll also, we continue on getting the job done because we do open November 17th. And with the dates that we have, it's, you know, to go to the next round, we're already running out of time. We're running out of time. So.
But they are allowed to do temporary banners though. They would have permission for temporary sign.
Sure.
Apply for one, yeah.
The problem with that sign actually recesses in the building, and what you see, the silver is all aluminum and actually ties to the sign. So the sign is really the key point right now to finish the storefront, which we would want before November 17th.
Yeah, and I would say, in my opinion, we want to be pro-business. To have the sign already purchased, we're going to argue over 70 square feet, and we're going to give them a variance, but we're not going to give them the variance they want. To me, it's not very pro-business.
I think it's pro-business, but you have to be fair to all the businesses in the town. You can't give special dispensation to one business because they've done something by mistake. By the way, the only reason that happened, it was their error.
Yeah.
Stephanie told them flat out when they came in for the building permit, don't forget, you've got to sign up for a special sign permit. They chose not to do it. They chose to ignore our rules.
Well,
At some point, we've got to...
I think it was a good faith error. I don't know.
Well,
I would
either way,
characterize it in
listen,
quite that way.
this is a major corporation here. They should know what they're doing, and I'm sure they hire people, they hire contractors to ensure that they know what they're doing, so.
It was certainly an error.
Absolutely.
It's not, again, we're still in public hearing, so I want to make sure we stick to the facts of the matter. So.
I think also
with that-
we've had two businesses there that had larger signs. And I think this, the larger sign, I think, fits more appropriately on the building. Just want to make that comment.
Okay. Those are good considerations. I believe we heard in the staff report, we don't have any support for whether or not those previous signs had ever been approved, and they're clearly non-conforming. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we found permit records, but I didn't find anywhere, like in the past, sometimes as an administrator would write variance, or there'd be some sort of ordinance associated with a larger sign. I'm not certain as to how they really got approved, but they at least were permitted, and we have records, like I showed you the Cub Foods one. We at least know how large those were, but I can't really tell you the history of why it came to be so large.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate that. And so moving forward, I'd like to entertain a motion, if there are no further questions, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We've already done that. Public comment, I think we've covered that, but if there's anybody.
Can I make a public statement?
Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
My name's Tom Bertram. I'm a Tinley resident, so I do work for Aldi. I just want to let you know that. I really feel that the investment that we're making in this community is just outstanding. It's more than just taking over a building and throwing in shelves and selling groceries. I mean, we are completely gutting that building. We've updated everything, per code, plumbing, electrical. I mean, it's really a brand new store. We use the shell, the four walls, and I really think that for us to really get the most out of what we're investing, that's why we're looking for that variance. And I think overall, once the complete construction is done, that you will see that this is going to be the most modern grocery store in Tinley, and it's really gonna challenge everybody else that comes into Tinley Park to really bring their A game, and because of how modern it's going to be. So I just wanted to say for the record that we're not just, like I said, opening up doors and putting shelves in and stocking the shelves. We are completely overhauling that thing, and it's really going to be a beautiful store when it's all said and done. And I think this has a lot to do with it. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So continuing on with public comment, do we have anybody else who would like to make a comment before we close the public hearing? Hearing none. Again, could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Okay, public hearing is now closed. And for this hearing, I think it would be relevant for us to run through the finding of fact, if we could do that.
If you want to follow along, we are on page 11 of your staff report, 11 and 12. These are standards for a special use. And for A, we said the proposed signage will meet applicable village building codes and electrical codes. The proposed signage is visually in scale within the facade. The proposed signage will create a more readable sign from Harlem Avenue to assist customers in locating the shopping center without impeding traffic flow. For B, we said, proposed signage will not negatively affect other adjacent properties within the Park Center Plaza Shopping Center because it will attract customers to the shopping center. For C, the proposed signage will not negatively affect improvements within the Park Center Plaza Shopping Center or surrounding properties. The request will not set a precedent for signage in other areas of Tinley Park since LD is a part of the Park Center Plaza planned unit development, and PUDs have flexibility with zoning regulations to fit the unique needs of the development. This is not a variance request, it's a deviation from the original PUD to allow for changes to the allowable signage for this tenant space. For D, the site, Park Center Plaza, has existing utilities, roads, drainage, and necessary facilities. For E, the proposed signage will provide increased visibility toward Harlem Avenue, which is a distance of approximately 540 feet from the facade. A sign meeting village regulations would not be readable at this distance when driving the speed limit on Harlem Avenue. F, the proposed sign will conform to all other applicable regulations. And finally, G, the proposed signage contributes to the economic development of the community by allowing a new business to competitively advertise to customers on major thoroughfares. Aldi will attract customers to the Park Center Plaza Shopping Center and to the Tinley Park area. That's all I have.
Thank you. From any of the other commissioners, do we have any additional points that we would like added to the findings of fact for the record? Any comments or questions on the findings of fact as read by?
Can I ask one question of the commission? Are we in consensus that we have no issues with the 3 extra signs that Aldi's asking for?
Correct.
Correct.
There's no issues there?
No issues.
That's fair to say. Okay.
Okay.
So on that point, Commissioner Croner, what I'd like to do is carve these out here conceptually to make sure that we're getting consensus on these points here. So getting to the crux of the petition here, we are looking for, I have it right here in front of me. The deviations are for height and number of signs and square footage. Am I accurate on that? Okay, so running down, is it fair to say among the commissioners, we have consensus that we're comfortable with the deviation for number of signs? Is that fair?
Correct.
I just want to make sure that when we go take a vote, we're all kind of clear where we're standing here. It sounds to me like we might have, we don't have consensus necessarily on, we have consensus on allowing a deviation for height and square footage. There may be a difference of opinion as to what that amount would be. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. So, does that cover any concerns that you had there, Commissioner Stanton? Because what I would suggest you do, in the interest of making sure nobody's voting against their interest, you could entertain a motion first on the number and separate that and run that through. Next would be to entertain a motion for the deviation as requested. So the maximum height, the maximum size requested. And that we'll see if that motion carries or fails. Should it fail, we could entertain a motion for the middle size sign. Does that make sense, what we're trying to do here? That way, I wouldn't want somebody to vote for the middle yes when they really want to vote for the larger one. We clear?
Yes.
Any concerns about taking that approach? Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion on the deviation for number of signs. Would somebody like to take a shot at carving that out?
Sure, I'll go ahead and make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner Doyle Signs, Inc. on behalf of Aldi for a substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza unit development to allow for an increase in the number of signs allowed for Aldi at 16000 Harlem Avenue and within the B-3 PD zoning district. The proposed substantial deviation will allow for a total of 4 wall signs, period.
Period. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Commissioner Gatto, roll call vote. Are all the commissioners clear on what this
We're
motion
just
is?
voting on the 4 wall signs.
Wonderful.
Excellent, thank you.
Gatto,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Broner,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes. Motion carries. Excellent. So proceeding forward, I would entertain a motion for a deviation to the height and square footage as proposed here in the motion to consider. Do I have anybody who would like to make that motion?
My computer screen
Yeah,
is
that's-
it's just messed up.
Okay.
Happened.
This one.
That one's also, it's flashing.
It's in the staff report here.
Here's one.
Got it.
I don't see the motion. There's no motion.
To make a motion,
Just reference it as option one? or-
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have 3 options.
Okay.
Maybe that's just easier. If you don't have it in front of you, Commissioner, maybe just say option 1 is presented in the staff report. That's what you guys, that's what you want to make the motion on, right?
Correct.
I think that's fair, Commissioner.
Okay.
with that? Or Chairman?
I think the record clearly reflects that. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Make a motion to recommend the village board grant a special use permit to petitioner Doyle Signs, Inc. on behalf of Aldi for substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza planned unit development to allow for increase in the size and number of signs allowed for Aldi at 16000 Harlem Avenue and within the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Park Center Plaza planned unit development zoning district. The proposed substantial deviation will allow for total sign face area of 253 square feet, and the main side would be a maximum height of 15 feet.
Okay.
Second.
Motion Commissioner Engel, second Commissioner Curran, and we're going to roll call vote on that. And again, all commissioners are clear on which
That's
option.
one.
Voting for the big one.
Broner,
No.
Stanton,
No.
Curran,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Manny,
No.
Gatto,
No.
Shaw.
No. Okay, so that motion fails. And now I would entertain a motion for the third option, which is the middle size.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner Doyle Signs, Inc. on behalf of Aldi for a substantial deviation from the Park Center Plaza planned unit development to allow for an increase in the size of the signs allowed for Aldi at 16000 Harlem Avenue and within the B-3 PD zoning district. The proposed substantial deviation will allow for a total sign face of approximately 184 square feet, and the main sign would be a maximum height of 12 foot tall.
As reflected in option 3 in staff report. Fair?
Yes.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Stanton. And we have a roll call vote, please.
Gatto,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Curran,
No.
Stanton,
Yay.
Croner,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, so I appreciate the time and effort you gentlemen put in. I'm pleased that we could give you some sort of deviation. I recognize that it's not exactly what you're looking for.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you for investing in Tinley, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda tonight is a workshop for Studio Q, 17708 Oak Park Avenue, a special use permit. And I would just remind everybody this evening that this is a workshop. The purpose of this is for the commissioners and staff and the petitioner to work through details. There will not be public comments within this, and we can move forward with the staff report.
All right, item number 3 tonight is Studio Q, and they're locating at 17708 Oak Park Avenue. This space is adjacent to Cousins. Sorry, just want to make sure everyone's okay then. Are you okay?
Big ass on it.
What do you have to do?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right.
Okay. So, moving forward.
Everyone else's chair? All right. As I was saying, the location is 17708 Oak Park Avenue. To give you some context, that's right adjacent to Cousins in the Tinley Center office shopping center area on the west side of Oak Park Avenue. And the petitioner is seeking a special use permit. This is similar to the ones we've done in the recent past, like Mile 1, in the more distant past with the train station. The neighborhood general zoning district and actually all of the legacy district requires a special use permit for a fitness or gym or recreational type business use. So this is another one of those types of uses, and she's looking for a special use permit. In the past, we've also had a lot of these opening earlier. That is not the intent here. Some of us are not morning people, I believe, and this one will have a little bit later hours. So I'll let the petitioner talk more about her business later, but specifically this is just for the business use. In the staff report, you'll see there are a couple open items, and these again are similar to what we saw in our last case with Mile 1 Fitness at our last meetings. Number 1 is consider conditions related to sound, because we do have usually music played in these types of businesses, and we want to be good neighbors to the tenants next door that are sharing walls, as well as any other adjacent properties. And number 2 is the petitioner is required to install a bike rack to provide parking for at least 2 bikes. And this is a legacy code requirement that, again, we're trying to be more pedestrian and bike friendly in the downtown. So we do have a bike parking requirement as well as a vehicle parking requirement for businesses. Thank you. Here is a photo of the storefront, and you can see Cousins off to the right there. And then there is a Gateway Learning Center, which is, I believe, like a tutoring center off to the left side. You can start to see their window sign there. The previous tenant was a similar recreation type use, and this tenant is just looking to fill that space, and she actually has pretty minor interior remodeling to do in order to accommodate her business needs. Here is a street view from Google showing the Tinley Center. This is looking off of Oak Park Avenue toward the building. Here is an aerial image of the site. Really quick, I want to go through the facts from the application. She is looking to have a total of up to 4 employees with group dance and fitness classes such as Zumba, hip hop, yoga, and cycling. The hours of operations are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11 a.m. and 6 to 8 p.m. Friday, just those evening classes from 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and Sunday closed. Obviously, those hours could potentially change in the future, but the petitioner is aware that if she wants to start prior to 6 a.m. Or go later than 2 a.m., I guess, at night, that she would need a special use permit to do so. The maximum number of participants in the fitness classes at one time is 30, and the parking spaces allotted to this tenant by the lease is 45. So again, in this particular case, there's a lot more parking available than in our last two special use permits for these types of uses. They have quite a few parking spaces actually in this lot. If I remember, it's about 170 spaces, and that's just on the east side of the building, not even counting the back of the building. So lots of parking here, a lot of daytime uses because this is primarily office use in here. There's one restaurant and a couple other little businesses that are interspersed in this area, but primarily the hours, especially the evening hours between 6 and 8, there shouldn't be any conflict with parking because a lot of those businesses will be closed. We did also note that some of the businesses in there are appointment only, so it's very limited hours in those cases. So not a lot of conflict with the other tenants here as far as parking. So staff did not recommend a condition or any further notes regarding parking and trying to figure out where these people might park. And as we always show you, this is the surrounding zoning. Again, this property is zoned NG or Neighborhood General, and that is part of the Legacy District, which is the downtown special zoning district. And you can see to the north is some R4, which is single-family residential. I believe there's also like a townhome building there as well, just north of this building. Across the street on east of Oak Park Avenue is more Neighborhood General. You've got some sort of mixture of uses there with some mixed-use buildings that have commercial on the first floor and residential on top, as well as just some strictly commercial buildings there. To the south of this office center, you've got R6, which is townhomes in this case, and you've got some other residential districts a little bit farther out with some R1 and some R3 around the sides. And we do have Oak Park Avenue to the east of this particular site. This store does not have frontage necessarily on Oak Park Avenue, but you can see it if you're driving northbound on Oak Park Avenue. And that's really all I have for the workshop. As far as the sound conditions, I would recommend that we look at the same condition that we proposed for Mile 1 Fitness that has a 50 decibel limit, with the caveat that if there are any valid complaints about the noise that we enforce sound safety. Also, as Commissioner Curran recommended last time around with the bike racks, if we could have possibly the property owner, or I guess in this case the association, since we have many property owners in this case, we could have them investigate a shared bike rack for mini bikes to park. That was something that the last petitioner went with, and I think served the purpose as well for all the tenants. That would be something we would want the petitioner to talk about with the association or the property owner and see what might be viable for bike parking, because we didn't see any other bike parking on the site. And as businesses come and go, they will need to meet that requirement as well.
This is office condo?
Primarily, yes.
Individual owners of the association?
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. Down here on the end, Commissioner Engel, do you have any questions?
No questions.
No question.
No questions.
Stephanie, in regards to the sound, how do you justify the bar right there? And then this is going to be right next to the bar, correct? So I wouldn't, I don't know, I mean, I can understand we got to watch the volume, but I'm sure the bar has a lot of carryover also.
Sure, and I think the concern is more for those morning hours, the 9 to 11 hours, because if you have the next business over is a tutoring center. If you have a student trying to concentrate, I mean, if you want, you can cultivate that condition to something that applies only to the morning hours rather than something in the evening.
Yeah.
Because you do have the bar there that frequently has live music. It is loud. I don't know how loud it is necessarily from outside the building at all times, but it's definitely a great question to raise as to, I guess, what time span you want that to apply to.
Okay, thank you.
That's an excellent point. If you were to, as Stephanie said, follow the pattern in some of the others, but carve out the operating hours.
Right, right.
If we wanted to do that, or I suppose we could just leave it as is, with the point about it invalid. So as we move forward with this, are there any thoughts on that, as far as how we might want to craft that, so that when we move to public hearing?
Just a question, the bar doesn't have any sound requirements, does it?
It would have normal, like, nuisance requirements, I believe, if someone complained.
Okay. Could we do that with the studio?
As a special use permit, and we could put any conditions on it we want, any reasonable conditions.
But they exist, the noise ordinance exists.
Yeah, there's a noise ordinance. If you want to go
Takes a
about
complaint.
Right.
Yeah, my thought would be, as a petitioner,
Yes.
hi, how you doing? My assumption would be they're unlikely to be louder than a bar.
Are the walls paper thin or no? I mean, is it?
No. And actually, can I say something on that behalf?
Sure.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kiana Grant. I am the prospective owner of Studio Q. Just in regards to the sound, I think the main concern is probably the tutoring school. I actually went over there and spoke to the owner, and she informed me, we actually spoke about the hours of operation. So we actually will not be open at all at the same time. They're actually open from 12 to 6, and I figured that because with tutoring, usually the kids are in school in the morning and then they come and do tutoring like in the early afternoons. So I will be open from 9 to 11. I will be closing during the afternoons and then opening back at 6 p.m. So she has hours from 12 to 6. So it would be absolutely no, I wouldn't have my music that loud anyway, guys. Promise. But just to reiterate on some things, I am just looking for this special use permit mainly because I'm trying to provide a place where people have a passion for dance and fitness. I've been a dance instructor since 2006, 12 years. I've worked at various fitness facilities. I'm currently at Export right now. I actually used to work at the Women's Workout World in Tinley Park on 159th in Harlem. So I have a lot of experience in this field, and I have a lot of the instructors that I will be having, the 4 instructors that will be working there, also have very extensive experience in this field as well. So we just want to provide that for the people in the community of Tinley. So if you guys have any other questions. No?
Go down this way. I did have a question, and I don't know if it would be if something you could speak to or that. One of the reasons I was asking about condo business, do they currently have any security cameras or anything like that around there? I know, as far as like lighting, just.
Yeah, I have to check. Do you know?
I don't. I know, like he said, with the lighting, definitely, but not necessarily. Yeah, that would be good.
Do you have any plans on putting any sort of security cameras?
Yes, I'm actually working with ADT right now to get some installation.
So cameras
for
that would point to the outside the door?
Oh, outside the door? No, but I can definitely get that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be good.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are no other questions, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do we have any open items on this?
The open items were just the bike rack and talking about a condition for sound. So would you like us to draft a different condition related to sound, or do you feel comfortable with not having a condition?
I would be fine with as is. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah. Yes. As is being no condition, or the same condition as mile 1?
Well, the same condition as mile 1.
Right.
Okay. Just making sure.
Good?
Okay.
All right, excellent. Thank Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have we noticed this
Yep.
for public hearing yet?
We've noticed for a public hearing, it'll be on November 2nd, same time, same place. Got it.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Last item on the agenda for this evening is another workshop. This one is for the residents of Brookside Glen, southwest corner of 191st Street and Magnuson Lane, site plan approval and special use permit. Do we have anybody else out there that was stepping in? Okay. We can proceed with
You
the,
might, just a suggestion, because you made a nice comment in the beginning, but I think a lot of these people weren't here in terms of the protocol for a workshop and how it works.
absolutely. So for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning, I spoke beginning just to give a sense for the difference between a public hearing, which we had up front, and a workshop. The purpose of a workshop is for the commissioners and the staff and the petitioner to work through any questions or open items that we might have. There will be public comment at the end of the meeting, and in the interest of making sure that we maintain decorum and keep the meeting moving along, I ask that folks keep their questions and comments for the public comment section. We maintain decorum and
And it's a distinction in that it's comments, it's not question and answers at that time, it's just comments.
yes, that is correct. Okay. So with that, can we proceed with the staff report?
Sure. All right, item number 4 tonight is a workshop for the residences of Brookside Glen. And as you mentioned, it's in the southwest corner of 191st and 80th Avenue, more specifically along Magnuson Lane. Greenway Boulevard does sort of loop north and turn into Magnuson Lane, so just in case anyone's confused about the streets there, that portion of it is Magnuson Lane. They are seeking site plan approval, a special use permit for a substantial deviation from the Brookside Glen Plan Unit Development, and a couple exceptions as well from the village code. So the summary of open items that you found in the staff report are, we've got 7 of them. Some of them have been addressed, and I've got some slides reflecting, addressing those open items in the report here. Number 1 is consider an exception for the front yard setback to allow the structures to be set back 18 to 27 feet from the east property line. Consider an exception for the building height to allow the structures at a maximum building height of 65 feet. Number 3, minor revisions are required on the landscape plan. Number 4, information is needed about plans for security and management of the property. Number 5, lighting is required at all entrances and exits to the structures. The petitioner must submit plans showing adequate lighting provided by fixtures complementary to the architectural style of the structures. Number 6, revise elevations to include reddish-brown brick accents on the clubhouse. And number 7, provide a material sample for the foundation of the building. And speaking of material samples, we do have those on the table down here if anyone would like to see them. I'm not going to bring them to you because they're about 50 pounds each. And I sadly did not get my workout in by carrying them down here today, but they're rather heavy and you're welcome to come check them out if you would like. Here's a rendering of the proposed development. You can see they are going with 4 four-story buildings and a clubhouse at the center. And just to let you know, again, the road does sort of curve along here, so these buildings are placed on the curve. This image doesn't show the road actually on here, so I just wanted to make sure you understood that there will be a road going through that sort of green area there. So previously, the Plan Commission, some of you are still commissioners here today, some of you are new, but you might be familiar with the first time that this project came to us back earlier this year, came to the Plan Commission. And they were originally requesting 2 buildings and a clubhouse. And each of the buildings would have 72 dwelling units rather than the 36 per building that are proposed today. The site also had several amenities throughout the development, and the petitioner actually was able to retain, I believe all, if not almost all of those amenities in this particular plan. With the last iteration, there was concerns about the bulk of the buildings, the size of the buildings, and overall the petitioner went through the process and the plans were not approved. So the petitioner came back to meet with staff as well as elected officials and a group of residents from the Brookside Glen subdivision. And we met together and determined that the 4-building proposal you see in front of you today would be most amenable because we could retain the amenities for the development as well. The other option would be going back to what was approved in 2000, which would be a 9-building proposal that would be the buildings identical to what you see on the east side of 80th Avenue. If the petitioner built those, there would probably be no amenities to that particular development. So this proposal, again, retains the amenities and breaks up the buildings to a little bit smaller scale. It's not quite as small as the buildings you see on the other side of 80th Avenue, but it's comparable relatively rather than the 2 buildings that were proposed before. And we also want to note too that although they're 4 stories, not the whole building is 4 stories. A portion of the building is just 3 stories. So again, they try to use architecture to break up the bulk of the buildings as well. And we'll talk more about that when we get a little bit further through the report. Okay, the zoning in the area is B3 in the intersection, as you see here. The other zoning is R5 and R2. However, I would like to note that the zoning has been a topic of discussion for this particular parcel as well. The village originally annexed the property, all of Brookside Glen, which is over 800 acres. We annexed that in 1990, and one of the exhibits is missing that was regarding which property is zoned which zoning district. However, other documents that were approved, in fact, I believe in the same night, clearly talk about this parcel as well as a couple other parcels having different zoning. This one being talked about as R6. So some of the regulations you'll see here reflect R6 rather than R5. However, the official zoning map, which may have an error, actually shows R5 on this parcel. This is the subject parcel again in white. You can see there's a pipeline going through this red dashed line. There's a pump station, an existing townhome sort of to the south and the east. There's a planned commercial area in the intersection of 191st and 80th on both sides of 80th Avenue. And there are existing condos and single family in the vicinity as well. There's detention to the north of the site, and on the other side of the ComEd easement, there's the PAWS Adoption Center. This is an image from the village's comprehensive plan, and this site, I had to use the blue there to outline it because of the bold colors, but you can see the site is yellow, which means residential uses. And here's an exhibit from the annexation agreement. Again, this is the parcel approximately that we're working with today for this particular site, and it was noted as condo/apartment in that 1990 document. So open item number 1 here. They are looking for an exception to the front yard setback requirement. And we sort of have 2 different regulations playing in this case. We have the minimum setback requirement for R6 for multifamily structures. And then we also have an overlay district that goes on properties south of 179th Street here in Tillman Park called the Urban Design Overlay District, or the UD1. And this actually aims to have lesser setbacks in the front yard to promote a pedestrian sort of atmosphere, to bring buildings closer to the street and make it look more modern. And so we've got some conflicting regulations here because the multifamily requirement is 25 feet minimum, and the overlay district calls for 20 feet maximum. So you really can't meet both regulations, so you have to have an exception from one. So what the petitioner did here is they actually have the building set back 18 to 27 feet. So it sort of meets the intent of both of those because there's a couple parts of the buildings that are less than 20 feet, but there's a couple parts of the buildings that are farther back than 25 feet. So they're sort of, as I said in the staff report, straddling the regulations here by having sort of that range of setbacks. Open item number 2 was an exception for the building height to allow the structures at a maximum building height of 65 feet. I do want to note that building height is defined as the mean roof height. It's not the actual very tip top of the building versus the grade. So you'll see I put all of those measurements in this particular table here. You can see the comparison of this particular project to Brookside Place, which is the existing condominiums, the difference between the two, and the applicable regulations from both the zoning ordinance and the substantial deviation that was granted in 2000, which references those Brookside Place condominiums and the potential 9 buildings on this site. So you can see here the number of stories is the same. They have 4 stories of residential plus semi-underground parking garage. The mean roof height, in this case, they're proposing just under 65 feet, and Brookside Place is just under 56 feet. Their maximum that they were allowed by the zoning ordinance is 40, and in 2000, they allowed a maximum of 56 feet. And again, this is the mean height, not the very tip top of the roof. So that next measurement you see here is actually the maximum overall height, which is just around 72 feet for the proposed project, just about 62 feet for the existing condos, which is a difference of give or take 10 feet. The garage floor elevation for this particular project is about 700 to 702 feet, whereas Brookside Place is actually at a little bit higher elevation across the street, across 80th Avenue. So they're at about 710 to 713 based on our GIS measurements, and it's a difference of about 10 feet. So the 10 feet taller that the new buildings are and the 10 feet taller by land, you're really going to even out when you actually see the buildings, along 191st Street or coming over the 80th Avenue Bridge going south on 80th Avenue. It's going to really appear the same because the ground is physically 10 feet lower on this site. So that's what that last category is in the table there. It's within about 5 inches to a foot of being the same. So you're really not going to notice a difference when seeing it from afar. And here's one more comparison we wanted to show you. This is the proposed building, one of the proposed buildings and one of the existing condo buildings. As you can see, it's a little bit wider, but we also note that it's not completely 4 stories. It's 3 stories on the ends and 4 stories in the middle. And this sort of gives it a nice architectural look as well because you get some varied roof lines and you get some articulation in the building. We wanted to point out too that the height in this building is actually probably more of an amenity than something to be concerned about because the first floor will be 14 feet tall, whereas the first floor in Brookside Place is about 11 feet tall. A typical floor in this building is still a little bit taller, so you get a little bit higher ceilings in the units. And the top floor, on both the 4th floor and the ends of the 3rd floor, will have 14-foot tall ceilings, whereas the other units in the existing condos have about 8.5 feet. So you're going to get considerably taller units on those top levels of these proposed buildings, which works as a nice amenity for the units. So that's something to be considered for this exception for the building height. If they did not get the exception and had to meet the 56-foot tall requirement like the condos, they wouldn't be able to offer those nice tall windows that look really nice on the building and provide those higher ceiling heights. Here's an image of the site plan. As you can see, it's a little bit different from the previous one in that the buildings, there are 4 of them now. They have 36 units each, and a clubhouse is centered along the middle of the street here. They do have a little circle drive there and a couple parking spaces if someone's dropping something off or if there's someone going to sign up in the office there. The buildings are connected by terraces in between. If you recall from the last site plan, they did have terraces on the buildings and they wanted to retain that as an amenity. So they use that as sort of a area that people could share between the buildings. And it didn't take away green space along the back of the buildings. They were still able to provide lots of green space to the west of the buildings. Open item number 3, we have some minor revisions required on the landscape plan. And in particular, the petitioner did talk to me about this and they are willing to meet the requirements of the landscape code. We do want to see some additional shrubs and plants. Specifically, the landscape architect said more groupings rather than linear patterns to make it look a little bit more natural. Relocating some plant material to provide shade in the parking lot and the drive aisles. and removing mulch-only areas because we want to see mulch with plants rather than just a bed of mulch. Additionally, we want to see some plans for the landscaping on the front part of the terrace. As you can see here in this diagram, the first, I believe, 10 or so feet of the terrace, 10 or 20 feet of the terrace, will be green roof. So you won't even really see the activity on the terrace from Greenway Boulevard or Magnuson Lane in the front there because there will be greenery in front of it. Also, the terrace is elevated. It's above the garage, so we'll see that in the renderings here. The parking breakdown, the garage spaces, they have 171. The exterior spaces, 125. And they have 64 land banked, which I highlighted in sort of the red shade that you see on this diagram underneath here. And it's a total of 360 parking spaces overall. This meets the requirement for 2.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So they were able to provide all the parking. The land bank spaces means that they will not build those parking spaces unless they are needed. So any of those areas that you see in red would not be constructed until such time as the village and the developer determine that those spaces are needed to meet if they have extra residents that need parking or they have guests and they're running low on parking. But overall, the land banking is an asset because it won't be developed and they'll get to keep that green space if they don't truly need all that parking. I wanted to point out here, these are where the trash enclosures are located. The buildings have their own interior trash rooms, and a property maintenance person will be responsible for taking out the trash from the trash rooms to the actual outdoor enclosures on trash days. And they also will have masonry enclosures with gates as well, so it won't just be a dumpster sitting there. It will have an enclosure that matches the building. We know last time around there was concern with the proximity of the building to the existing townhome. Also in the last proposal, there was a time when the outdoor terrace area was the closest feature to the existing townhome. They made sure, again, there's not an outdoor activity space closest to the townhomes, and they have almost 200 feet here between the proposed structure and the nearest existing townhome. That drive aisle is much the same as what you see today for the existing pump house access, and they'll be paving that actually, making sure that the pump house retains access through this drive aisle as well. Open item number 4, this information is needed about the plans for security and management of the property. This is information that the petitioner provided to us. She researched a lot of different comparable developments throughout the Chicagoland area and did a comparison of units, whether or not they had cameras that were monitored, if they had doormen, if they had on-site maintenance, the management company hours on both weeks and weekends. And this information is here based on her research, and we just need some information about how she's using this research to determine her own schedules and her own needs for her development. Open item number 5 was lighting is required at all entrances and exits. We also want to make sure that the light fixtures are complementary to the architecture. This was in your staff report, and they've actually already provided us a new photometric plan, and I highlighted the areas where the light shows on the plan here. So you can see they added some fixtures near all those doors. And I believe there's some ornamental lighting around the terrace areas as well. We talked earlier a little bit about the amenities, and I wanted to go through some of the conceptual images that they provided showing the amenities. There will be fire pits, as you can see in the image here. The fire pits, I believe, are out in sort of the west lawn areas between the buildings and the parking lot. And then there will be a pergola and seating area up on the terrace. Just to go through these amenities, there will be semi-underground parking, a 5,320 square foot clubhouse that has fitness center, locker rooms, billiard room, lounge, office, party room, and free Wi-Fi for the residents. There will be an outdoor pool with cabanas, a fire pit, and various seating areas. Outdoor terraces that have grilling stations with a sink, so they are running plumbing out there as well. Seating areas, fireplace and fire pits, pergola, and green roofs. outdoor gaming areas, bike storage, electric car charging stations, disc golf baskets throughout the site, outdoor exercise circuits, fireplace and fire pits with pergolas, open space, and a dog park. And also on our next page here, I've got a couple images for you. So here are the bike parking and what the electric car charging stations might look like. They actually moved the dog park from the south end of the site nearest the townhomes and the pump station to the north end of the site, closer toward 191st Street. It's a bit smaller space, but I think they'll sort of reduce the idea of what they had for the dog park to more of like a fenced-in open area rather than all the bells and whistles that they had before with the ramps and, you know, tethers to jump through and all those fun things. And you can see here some other places where you can see the clubhouse, the pool, cabanas, locker rooms, fitness room, lounge. All those are in that vicinity with the red arrow pointing to it. And the terrace areas, again, between the different buildings, have seating areas and grilling stations, those types of things, as well as green roofs in the front of it. So again, you're not going to really see that activity on the terrace from the street ahead of the east of the buildings. So again, the dog park went from that side to that side. So again, it's a little bit smaller, but we wanted to make sure that was clarified here. And here are some elevations of the building. So here's where you can start to see the different architecture. You have the taller windows on the 4th floor and then on the ends of the 3rd floor, which is a new feature that was not in the last plans. It was only on the top floor that they had those tall windows. And in this case, since they were able to sort of break that up, they were able to add those windows on the 3rd floor as well. You can see they're also using the brick materials in the darker red color. And on the foundation of the building where you see the lighter color, that's actually the semi-underground parking garage. So you can see in this rendering, they bermed up some of the green area around that. So you're really going to see minimal of the foundation area around the parking garage because they're going to be pushing that ground up, similar to the existing condos. If you've been over by the Brookside Place, you know that you don't really see a whole lot of that garage level, but it is what we call semi-underground. They do have different doors on both the east and west side to access the building. So we want to make sure you can access it from the street side as well as the back side, which is primarily where the residents will enter the building. The image on the top is the west-facing rendering, and the image on the bottom is the east-facing or street side rendering. And you can see the terrace off to the side on both images, on the left side for the top one and the right side for the bottom one. So you will see, again, that greenery in the very front of the terrace. This is the proposed railing for the balconies. Sort of an open style, modern looking railing. And these are the materials. You can see these also again on the table in front of you. It's a precast brick where the brick is inset in the concrete panel. And then the foundation material is a stamped concrete slab as well. So the brick is embedded here into the actual concrete panel. Open item number 6 was revised elevations to include the reddish-brown brick accents on the clubhouse because the original rendering showed this sort of beige-colored brick, and we've got both samples here if you're curious to see what those look like. We wanted to make sure that the clubhouse matched the rest of the buildings a little bit better and incorporated at least some of the red-colored brick. In this case, the petitioner has actually already revised the renderings that you see in front of you to include the red brick. I think the top image reads a little off because it's not actually going to be striped. It's going to be all red. So that's why I included the bottom one so you can see that more clearly. But since I included this view here, I wanted to include the same view there. So no striped buildings, but we will have more consistency with that darker red brick. And I personally like the darker brick because you have the variety with the red and the brownish in there rather than how the beige brick that you see here is really all one color. So you get a little bit more interest, I think, with the red-brown brick. But again, the clubhouse architecture mimics those same sort of tall window designs, especially if you look at this bottom picture on the PowerPoint here. You can see the building behind it, again, having those sort of square windows at the top. And they've done a good job with mimicking the architecture and really making the clubhouse fit in. Having that elevated center point, like the center of the residential buildings, I think it complements it well. Yes, and the clubhouse did increase about 2,000 square feet or so in this proposal versus the last proposal. So it's a little bit larger clubhouse, lots of amenities inside, and because of increasing actually the roof height with the architecture here, as well as having the parking kind of go through the bottom of this, a portion of it, the drive aisle for the garage goes through that first floor here. They actually now have a 2-story clubhouse rather than a 1-story clubhouse. So architecturally, it matches the scale of those residential buildings a little bit better rather than having a 1-story building. Here are some revised elevations that again show that new red brick on the clubhouse. And here's again a good view of showing how maybe a 1-story building might not have looked quite as proportional. And the last open item was provide a material sample for the foundation of the building, and that you have right there in front of you on the table as well. And here are some photos in case the rest of you can't see. Again, it is a stamped concrete, and I'm not sure if it's going to be stained as well. This particular picture here makes it look like a couple more colors versus this being one solid color. Is it going to be stained as well?
I don't believe that it is. It's basically going to be covered by all the plantings, so you won't really see it.
But it'll be one solid color there, right?
Yeah.
One of the last things we talked about in the report was the proposed sign, and we always like to do the analysis on the signs, as we saw earlier today. So we looked at what the requirements were for the sign, and this particular sign package that they're proposing does not exceed the allowable signage for the village. So there's no issues with the sign. We do want to make sure that the sign matches the building, so we want to make sure the same materials used on the buildings are used on the sign. And that's something that could be formalized later in the process with the sign plan review. And here's the site plan again. So if you have any other questions for me, or Ellen, you'd like to add anything?
No, I think everyone's cognizant of the process, and I think we started a new system here that I think proved out to be very helpful in the process. We did meet with representatives of Brookside Glen a couple times. We had representatives of the board. Mike Glotz came to those meetings, as well as who's our liaison for community development, as well as Mike Mangan. And then the residents themselves held a meeting, I don't remember the date. Last Tuesday. And so that they were able to sort of ferret out any other issues. And our attorney was there to address some of those concerns, as well as the trustees. So I think we've had some good opportunity to think through and work through some of the issues that were with the first proposal. And I think that was a nice proposal.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie, all for that. Before we move on to the commissioners' questions and some of the back and forth, before we entered into this workshop, I neglected to recognize that Commissioner Stanton has previously and continues to recuse himself. I won't put him on the spot and make him read a statement. Before the record, he has recused himself from this matter. Okay. So with that, do we have any? Yeah. So would the petitioners like to give a presentation as well?
We could. I think Paula covered, Stephanie covered most of it, but we can just give a quick presentation. My name's Carly Mayer. I am the developer, and we're excited to be back in front of this Plan Commission again with this project. Like Paula and Stephanie mentioned, we, after the last vote no, we decided to meet with the residents of Brookside Glen, United Against Brookside Glen Apartments, leaders, along with the elected officials and staff. And we had a lot of feedback from them, and we took that into consideration, and we early on decided that the 9 building proposal probably wasn't the best bet because we were losing all those amenities and a lot of that green space. We were also getting a lot closer to the existing townhomes. So working with Michael Mueller's group, we came to this agreement that we think is a beautiful project, and we're excited to hear your comments tonight.
Great. Thank you very much. And I wanted to say I appreciate all the effort that's gone through getting to where we are. But by all means, step up if you want to have some discussion.
I will try to, we'll go through this rather quickly. As Carly mentioned and Stephanie, we did work very hard with staff, with everyone, with the community, trying to reach some common ground, and we think we have, and we think we're very excited about what we've got before you tonight. And I'll just kind of run through a few items. There's a few items that I wanted to touch on in terms of the outstanding concerns that were held over from last time. Exceptions, and I think this was covered well by staff in terms of the exceptions we're looking for the special use, for the height, and the 2 exceptions, which are basically height and setback. Community involvement, again, Carly just touched on this. Staff had mentioned it as well. We've worked back and forth, kind of got everybody in the room together, tried to hash out find some common ground that we can all agree upon to hopefully get the best product for the community. The existing conditions, again, the overall PUD was laid out with the large commercial piece in the center, radiating out, which is typical common planning practices with a higher density and decreasing as you go out to lower density residential. Again, our goals for the project were probably, as we came together, we found we're pretty much in line, I think, with what everybody's looking for, to provide a quality infrastructure and promote amenities to ensure long-term viability. Something that's obviously very important to us. We're putting a lot of money into this. We certainly wouldn't be here if we didn't think it was viable. Create an additional housing opportunity for current and future residents of Tinley Park. We had a market study done. We looked at it. We saw there was a demand and a need for this type of housing. Again, making it viable, making us want to pursue it. Generate and keep as much green open space as we could to allow for more amenities, allow for a better development than if we had gone to the smaller buildings, but more of them, the 9 buildings that you've heard talked about. And then produce a positive economic impact for the village. By bringing more people to Tinley, we're bringing more people to spend their money here in the community of Tinley Park, and that's good for the community, and it works for our model as well. Again, the overall site plan, we went back and forth at a couple of the previous meetings on the dog park, in, out, on this plan left or right. We did take it because it was seen to be of a more intense activity, if you would, for the green space. So we moved it as far away from those residents as we could, the existing residents, to the north end, and made it a little bit smaller, less intense in terms of how we anticipate it being used by the residents. Again, the proposed street view, the elevations, as was pointed out with the rendering that we didn't have when we put this together, the stripe effect was kind of a printing error. It is all consistent in red brick color, the darker of the 2 samples that are there. Again, some quick shots of what we anticipate the insides of the, and the amenities that we're actually building into this product. These would all be present in the clubhouse area, the fitness area. Some of the interior finishes, again, we're looking for a really nice fit and finish on the inside of this building as well as the outside. Some common spaces where people can gather, have family gatherings, get to meet their neighbors, have common space where they can get together and start to form their own community within the community. The pool area, again, outdoor pool area with ornamental metal fence around the perimeter, cabanas for residents. Roof deck, these are the amenities. These are the areas that are between now between the two buildings. Before we had, I think as staff and Carly had mentioned, those were previously seen to be on the outside, or in how we had it laid out. There was one larger one on the south end towards the residents. We've taken that out of that portion of the equation and put it between our two buildings to help, kind of make it more internal to our site and not impact the perimeter of the site as much as it was previously. Again, some of the ideas of what those amenity areas are going to contain: fire pit, the electric car charging stations. There would be anticipated there would be a couple inside in the parking, enclosed parking area under, as well as a couple outside. Bike storage, this is how we anticipate storing bikes. This would all be internal to the structure, be down in the parking garage area. This, I think I touched on all of these. Some of the things that maybe hadn't come up yet and that we did want to make sure that we did listen and hear what was said. We will have one elevator per building. I know that last time it was more of an issue because we had one elevator in a larger building. Here we obviously have to have one in each building, serving the 36 units as opposed to one for 72. So we've done that, and obviously there'll be one in each building. The security and management, I know there was some concerns with this. We anticipate having cameras in the amenity areas and at the building entrances. Key fob entry into the buildings. My understanding is the key fob works for your building and the common or the clubhouse area, so that not everybody has access to every building. So the key fob is specific to your one of the 4 buildings. And then the hours of operation. I think this was touched on in the table that Carly had put together for staff that kind of showed similar projects in the Chicago metropolitan area and how those operate. We see ours falling in line with how those operate, and that's basically Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Saturdays 10 to 5, and then on the weekends it's 12 to 5. And that's for the management personnel to be there. And then the 24/7, obviously, for emergencies is always there. And rules and regulations was something that came up. We would have minimum of 1-year leases. And then I know there was some concerns about noise and other things, and I think part of that came from our location of the dog park and the amenity areas that we had. Now we've internalized that more. And of course, above and beyond all that, we know we have to meet Tinley Park's noise ordinance and any other ordinance that applies to any other residential development. So we're not looking for any deviations from those requirements. The distance from the closest townhome area to our building is, as was talked about, 199 feet. The building height gave the 2 breakdowns. I think we talked about. This is the building material, which I know was of concern last time. And if Scott is here, the architect, can talk about more of the details if that's something that we need to explore at this point. But it's a precast concrete material with a brick embedded into it. It's the actual brick in there. It's not like a stamp that's then colored. It's actual brick that's set in the concrete. What this does allow is a much sturdier, much better construction because it's a solid piece of concrete as opposed to your standard brick and block construction. So it's a newer technology, but in terms of a building material, it's actually far superior in terms of strength, weather, and how it encloses the space. So we're excited about that opportunity as well. And again, these are all not seeking any deviation. They're all allowed by the Tinley Park Building Code. The lighting fixtures, these were something that we had added as one of the comments that we did provide the updated photometric plan, but these are what we're looking at for the style of those fixtures. And then the summary of the open items, I believe we've touched on all of them. There was something about the landscaping, was certainly address any of the minor things. I know there was some mention of the mulch areas. And those mulch areas that are shown on the landscape plan are actually where the fitness workout stations go. So it wasn't that we weren't going to plant anything there, it's just that you need mulch under those actual fitness stations for safety and just for using that equipment, that's the appropriate treatment under those. So hopefully that clarifies that. The lighting we've addressed, the revised elevations, and the sample of foundation materials here. Again, important remembering those elevations we showed you, we don't have all the landscape materials shown on there because then you wouldn't be able to see the elevation of the building. So it's always kind of hard. Scott gets mad at me if I cover with his building and you guys get mad. So we'll definitely work and make sure we meet the code in terms of that. We have no problems with the suggestions that the staff and your landscape architect has recommended in terms of groupings of plantings versus a more lineal design. That's certainly something that we are happy to work with you and we'll finalize with the final landscape plan. Again, just the final layout where we're at today. Again, we're very excited about it. We're very happy to get your input. We're thankful that we've been able to work with the staff, the elected officials, and the residents to kind of put forth what we all, well, at least what we certainly feel is our best product and best footprint for this site. With that, I guess I will open it up or turn it back over to you for any questions.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
I do have a few questions here. I'd like to run through the commissioners first, though. We can start down at this end. Do you have any questions for staff or petitioners?
No questions for me.
On the land banking.
Yes.
Which I think is a great idea. But what determines when you would add more parking?
I think it would come down to, one, if we see a necessary demand. If there's a demand there for more parking spaces and we're getting complaints from our residents, before that would come back to the village, we'd like to be proactive in that and say, okay, we see a need, we will come back to you and say to the village with, hey, we need to expand our parking as was per our plan at this point.
It could be triggered by staff as well, if we're experiencing complaints in the neighborhood that there's on-street parking or something like that.
Yeah, we're hopeful. We're hopeful they'll come to us first, and we can head that off so that.
Probably drive it.
Yeah, I mean it'll probably be again hopefully a cooperative going back and forth between us and staff.
Okay.
That was my question.
Well, excellent. It must have been a good question because I had the same one.
3 for 1.
So I would just, well, I was checking them off. We'll get through everyone here. But on that, just to clarify the point, it would be triggered either by the owner or the staff, right?
Yes.
And they're already approved. If you approve this plan, you're approving them in those locations. So
Right.
it wouldn't need to come back for any further approval.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, the trigger, obviously, if they wanted to do it, they're pre-approved to do it, but if the village felt they should do it,
Correct.
the village can enforce that. Okay. Commissioner Gabbard, any questions down this side?
Just a few, if I may. Can I just ask a question? What's underneath the terraces that are that's connected to the buildings?
The terraces is underneath there. That's parking. The parking goes through there, so it's parking
So
underneath.
parking would be expanded into there?
Yes.
Where would the entryways to the garages be?
There's one at each end, so at the north end and the south end of the building. So it's one long garage underneath there. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm pointing, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So it goes from the dog park area on the one end to the other. You see the arrows pointing in.
Right.
So that's both an in and an out on each end. So it's not.
So the parking goes all the way to the end of?
All the way, yes. It extends under the clubhouse as well and then out through the other end.
And it meets the code in terms of 26-foot wide aisle, so you have 2 directions going in on both sides. You can come in and go out here, travel all the way through, and come out on this side, same here. So obviously these 2 resident buildings will probably use this entrance, and these 2 buildings will use this entrance.
Right, the parking spots will be assigned, so if you are parking on this side, you'll go into the one side or the other.
Okay. Where is the pergola? Where are the pergolas, or where is the pergola located?
There are several locations where we're going to have a pergola. It would be, thank you, Paul,
And then
right.
the roof terraces.
And in each of those two.
Yeah, we actually changed that, just on the roof terraces. Remember, we were just doing fire pits on the outside now because we were adding all the grills and everything to staying up on the roof terraces, so.
So that picture with the fireplace and the chimney with the pergola over it, I thought that was out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fire pits out there, I guess,
Yeah.
was my point. All the grilling stations and everything moved to the roof terraces.
Yeah, where is that picture? So we can, a lot of stuff is. Yeah, that. I think that's beautiful.
So where is that?
So that's,
It looked like there were 4 of them,
Yeah.
yeah.
2 of them right next to each other on South End.
Well, no, because she's saying that those are just going to be fire pits, not that pergola.
Well, I'm just saying that we moved the grill station. So
The grilling stations moved up to the
She's calling
rooftop.
that a fire pit kind of.
Yeah, I'm calling that a fire
An
pit,
earlier
sorry.
plan had the outdoor kitchens.
The outdoor
And they
kitchen
still
will-
have outdoor kitchens,
But on the
understood.
roof terraces.
But on the roof terrace.
Okay.
Correct.
So the picture we just saw, Pete, right here, see these two, that's.
So those 4 will have that,
There.
that
and
picture that
there,
we
We'll have
just
a
saw.
pergola,
and
Right.
there.
yes.
With the fire.
Fire
ice
pit.
Whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. And that
Not
will
to be
similar
confused
that
with the
picture
grill.
that you just put up.
Correct.
And then the
Okay.
cooking stations would just be on the terrace. So people don't have to take all the food out into the yard.
Understood.
Just come right onto the roof.
Who, I know that most Tinley Park residents, when they walk their dogs or their cats, they clean up after themselves, but by happenstance, we get those few that do not. Who is going to be responsible for maintaining that dog park?
The dog park will be our responsibility to maintain our, and then police our residents directly if there is a problem. It's just like the ordinance anywhere else in town. If there is a problem and someone reports it, we have to address it. So it's just like you would form a formal complaint against any other resident in an unfortunate situation like that.
And there's only one elevator in each building, including the clubhouse, is that correct?
Yes.
And that will be enough?
Yes.
And I'm just asking, I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, we've talked to Otis Elevator, and originally when we had the 72, it was on the Braintree, had just one elevator, but we went with 2, with basically this 36 units per building, one elevator was more than one. And we basically oversized it slightly so that it'd be able to, for furniture, to have a taller elevator, allow for furniture to be moved.
Okay. Going back to the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And the pictures, all the renderings showed that colored, which is much more attractive than that there. Would you consider using and going to the colored?
We could consider coloring it, yeah.
It also looked more like stacked stone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a different form line.
A different.
Yeah.
So it's a different pattern, this was just the sample.
Okay.
that they-
Would you go more,
Unfortunately-
would you do more than consider? Would you utilize that colored stone look rather than this cement look?
I thought you had some concerns about that though, at the one in.
No, they had that.
Oh, I thought there was one that was,
And I like that. That looked much, well, no, it was
Yeah.
this, but then there was the color. One of them had color, and that looked much better than this. I understand that landscaping may at one point
No, no.
cover it up.
I think we're in agreement. We could do that.
Okay, thank you. 2 last questions. I noticed on your presentation here that there'll be minimum 1-year leases. So I looked through the staff report. I don't see one area, and maybe I missed it, that says whether these are condos or apartments. These are all going to be apartments, or are they condos, or is it a mix?
It's slated to be apartments.
Okay. And seeing that in your presentation, you said that they will all be 1-year leases, would you be?
Minimum. I'm sorry, a minimum of 1-year leases. So we
Okay.
wouldn't let somebody come in
Fair
for
enough.
short term.
Okay. And you would allow that to be written into any deviations that are given that the buildings must maintain, if it goes through as apartments, that you must maintain a minimum of a 1-year lease?
Yes,
That'd be part of the recorded deviation?
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay. That is it, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Would you have a question?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm pointing down there, he's not allowed.
Yeah, there's
Well, you
nobody
can still
here.
make a comment.
I'm in, I'm the end.
That's all right. Actually, you probably could have left. Let's see, I'm going through mine, I believe almost all of these are kind of answered, which is a good thing. Point of clarification, far south end, where previously there was a dog park there.
Correct.
We have parking spaces, land bank, but it's otherwise open space, right?
That's correct.
That's where the pipeline goes through there, and
Yep.
you're kind of limited on what you can do anyway, right?
Exactly. That's why that area, we always anticipated as being some type of green space. We were originally thinking the dog park area there, but hearing what we heard at the last several meetings, we took it under advisement and moved it to the north end.
Okay.
And then that sliver, as you see, between the access drive, we landscape that very heavily so that we can buffer the closest residents there as best we could.
Okay. On the point on the elevator, one per building, these are 36 units, I would just say that as comparison, the Tinley Point building, which is a Dunkin' Donuts building here in town, has 36 units also on a single elevator. I own a unit there, I lived there for a year, and although I wish we had two, one was adequate. Just a point of reference there. I wouldn't say it was more than adequate, it was adequate. Has there been any consideration, I didn't see anything in here, I thought maybe when we kept referencing green roof, but I think that just meant the color, right?
No,
It's landscaped.
If you look, it's about, you look on that slide right there, it's about a third of each of those terrace areas closest to the street will actually have green material, so planting material.
Okay, so that is,
So it is an actual
green.
green, it's,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
We had asked them to do that because
It's screening
there was
as
a
well.
concern, it's
Yes.
screening, there was a concern it would start to look as one building mass, so we wanted to make sure that they looked like 4 distinct buildings.
Yes.
And so, even though there is the foundation for the
Yeah.
parking, with all the landscaping in front of it and on the top, it'll look all good.
Okay. Has there been any consideration for solar energy, solar panels, or anything of that nature?
No.
Okay. I was looking at the roof plans for these with the hip roofs, and especially because it mostly face east. It didn't really look like it would look good for that, but to the extent that's a possibility, I know our Environmental Enhancement Commission would appreciate chiming in on that. I personally wouldn't make that as a condition, but I would advise maybe consider it. Especially if you're targeting a certain demographic to move in there, they might appreciate that. The clubhouse and amenity area, if I heard right, is just over 5,300 square feet. That's pretty decent size.
Yes.
Is that going to be available for private party rentals, or is it strictly residents only?
As far as, it's intended to be for the residents only. And for, if they wanted to have family
Right.
gatherings there, they could do that certainly, but it's not like we're gonna have banquets there.
No, but a lot of different associations will lease out the clubhouse, and as long as the person renting it is a resident. So I just wanted to get an understanding whether it would be something such as that, or whether it would just be open to the public parties. You mentioned the key fob will be restricted to your building,
Mhm.
right?
And the clubhouse. So it'll work for both the clubhouse and then your individual building.
So if you were in, for instance, the extreme north or south building, and you wanted to go to the clubhouse, would you have to go all the way to the garage level and go all the way through?
You could do it that way, or you could go out through one of the
Or
entrances.
outside?
Yes.
There's no indoor.
No. I mean, you could, I guess I hadn't thought about that in terms of how it functions, but
Right, you'd have to go through the garage, that would be your
Okay.
indoor, technical indoor
Yep.
way to get through.
Okay, that's fair. All right. And you mentioned on the first and the top floors, which would either be fourth or third, depending on which end. There's 14-foot ceilings. Are those, I think we may have covered this in the past, but the plan changed. What is the treatment of the ceiling? Is it a finished gypsum ceiling, or is it?
Gypsum ceiling.
It is, okay. All right. Okay, those were all my questions. Thank you very much.
Sure, can I ask one more?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question about, are you going to have one designated building as pet-friendly, or are you going to just mix people up with dogs and everything else? Because
The way I've seen it most successful recently is different floors are pet-friendly.
Okay.
My question would go towards cameras. I heard we will have cameras at the entrances to the property, is that correct?
Entrances to the building. Buildings, I'm sorry.
So the garage and all entry levels into the buildings.
Correct. And then on the amenity areas as well.
And the amenity areas.
So like
being
the terraces.
The outside terraces, the pool.
Yes.
The fire pit areas. I'm just asking.
Probably not the fire pit areas, but the clubhouse and the terraces.
And the terraces.
Any thought to including cameras regarding the coming into the properties and leaving the properties, i.e. stolen cars, just for security purposes for both the residents as well as to help the police department?
We hadn't anticipated that at this time.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent. There was one point, and if any of this sparked other questions for the commissioners, to make sure we get them all there. I believe there was a traffic study conducted, and I may have tuned out for a split second. Did we cover that in the staff report?
I didn't have a picture to remind me to talk about it, but
Okay.
that's a great thing to bring up. Thank you for remembering that.
Okay.
We did consult our village engineer about the traffic that would be added to the area from this development. A couple of key things to note are that this road in front of the building would actually be completed. The extension of Greenway Boulevard, or Magnuson Lane, whatever you'd like to call it, will connect up to 191st Street. So there'll be an additional area that you'll be able to actually access 191st and 80th Avenue rather than only going east toward 80th Avenue.
It's actually closer.
Yes, and it'll be beneficial for the existing townhomes in that area as well, because they'll be able to go north, as you can see, sort of where it connects up near 191st there between the red and the yellow site here on the screen. So that'll be completed as part of this project. Also, the village engineer went through and provided a daily trip analysis, and as you can see in the memo that was included in your rather large packet this time around, if you happen to get to it, the village engineer said that this particular area was already designed for this amount of dwelling units and has the capacity to actually hold the amount of trips that would be generated from here. The intersection of Greenway and 80th Avenue currently has about 380 daily trips. With this development, it'll have about 410 because the majority of the trips will go north to 191st, which currently has 0 trips because the road is not completed, and it'll have close to 960 daily trips. So that's going to be the more popular way to go on this road according to the village engineer, and we'll actually be going north on 191st. And just for comparison, I also included the current daily trips on the east side of Greenway Boulevard by the existing Brookside Place. He said that was 840 trips. So basically, this new intersection at Greenway and 191st, or Magnuson and 191st, will be just slightly more trips than you see currently at 80th and Greenway on the east side coming from Brookside Place condos.
And from a life safety perspective, it does offer, it improves the situation with a second point of access. If some access was blocked, and I think you'll probably see some of the current residents start to take advantage of that new access.
And also, there are improvements planned to the I-80 bridge on 80th Avenue that the county and the village are working on completing design for. That bridge will be fixed, as well as there will be turn lanes added at the intersection of 191st and 80th Avenue. So those projects, I believe, are slated for completion in the year 2020. with the county. So that's something that'll be implemented in the next couple of years according to their current plans.
Is that section 191st village, county, state? Whose road is that?
It's county.
That's village.
County.
County. Okay. There, other than connecting the road, there's no plans for additional improvements. There's not going to be a light there, at least as planned right now.
Doesn't meet the warrants.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure it's clarified. Okay. That was all I had. Square this time.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. Last questions or comments from any of the commissioners? No? Okay. I believe the village attorney had a couple of points that were brought up at the public meeting or the resident meeting.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So as somebody, maybe Paula mentioned in the beginning, a couple Tuesdays ago, we did hold a meeting. I see a lot of the folks that were at that meeting here tonight. The planning staff was not there, just myself, Trustees Glotz and Trustee Mangan. We talked a lot about zoning issues and some more of the legal aspects of this, which Paula went over a little bit, but there were some planning issues brought up that I thought we should probably raise now, because I'm sure you'll hear about them when these folks get a chance to speak at the public hearing. And I know one of them was the far south area of the development. That's the one that's closest to the townhomes, correct? I'm saying that right, the south area?
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple of the folks that live in those direct areas, I think there were concerns about, does runoff been, they're going to experience any runoff issues, or, and I saw the lighting plan there, and it looks good, but we're not going to be lighting up there. How, I mean, just has that been addressed? Because there were some of those folks that live right there within proximity are, we're worried about some of those. So maybe if you want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure that'll come up.
And I think we stated it and probably stated it a little too quickly. We are not, we have to abide by those rules and regulations. So we can't force runoff off of our property. It's your engineering department won't allow us to do it. We don't want to do it. It's not going to be an issue. We have, this plan was approved with enough capacity in the detention area that's on the north end of this project, so that should not be an issue. We will have to do some grading, we understand that, but we haven't gotten into the final engineering yet because we want to make sure we're on the same page with the site plan before we go into that endeavor. But we understand those concerns, and we certainly will address those with our final plans. Similarly with the lighting.
It's very, very restrictive, so the new stormwater ordinances are very restrictive, and a lot of people look at the detention pond that's out there now. It has a lot of improvements that need to be made to that, and so all of that will be done per the current ordinances with WMRD.
And then similarly with the lighting, we have to meet your code for the allowable spill off, if you will, at the property lines, and we're not asking for any or deviation from what is allowed by code. So we'll meet the code on the lighting as well.
Yeah, it's just, I see this one down here that's close to them. We're not, again, I'm not a light expert here, but so we don't think there'll be any, no one's going to be getting hit in their windows with the lights. I know there's the type of lights you can point down and away from.
And I think as was the type of, it used to be referred to as a shoebox.
There you go.
Where you had where you have it coming straight down. With the LED, they're basically the same idea. They're shielded so that they direct the light down and back towards our property. That's why you typically see them located near, the light pole itself will be located near the property line with the orientation of the light going back towards our property.
Plus, they can't have any greater spillage than our ordinance, and they meet those.
Yeah, I can't read the little numbers on the photometric plan, but we have to meet.
1 foot candle.
Right, I think it's 1 foot candle at the property, or not to exceed half, so.
And then my last point, Chairman, you raised it, it was the traffic. That was obviously a large concern. I know there was talk about bringing that to other committees as well, Village Boards Committee, Public Works Committees, to look at this. My only thought is, and I guess we can kind of let this percolate, is oftentimes I've found, when you do these projects, it's, the traffic study comes in and it looks good and it sounds like everything's fine, and, and again, I'm not that familiar with the area and the streets, but what I do know is that when if there's a way to cut through somewhere, people will find it. And you might, and maybe I may have been guilty of that sometimes in my life too. I'm sure we all have. But so what I found, and I just want to throw this out to the commissioners and the developers, is putting if this goes, as we're talking about this, and everybody's happy with the current traffic studies and things like that, but just some type of commitment to, hey, if we're getting problems, if the residents are calling, hey, these people are cutting through, it is a problem, that you're willing to come back and talk with staff about traffic calming devices and things like that. So I found that to be helpful, because sometimes we won't know until things are out there, people are cutting through.
Well, these streets are going to be loaded much more with the future development than with this residential.
Great point.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll hear some more, but those were kind of the main takeaways that I had, planning issues from that meeting. And again, I'm sure there are more that are good points that we'll hear about.
Okay. Any final comments from staff? Can we move on? Sorry. Any final comments from staff before we move on? Okay, great.
I'm not hearing any direction to do any modifications before the public hearing.
Other than the foundation material.
Yeah, foundation material, landscaping. So the proposal that you've seen tonight, we're going to bring back to you for the public hearing.
Yes. So that's an excellent point, and for my part, I would say that's correct. Consensus from the rest of the commission. That's on that. I would agree about the foundation material. So I appreciate you looking into that. So Commissioner Connolly, also we're going to have public comment coming up.
Yes.
Would you have a couple of words about just guide?
Yeah, good point. Sorry, Chairman. I should have talked about this, and as we went through the last process, and we've talked about this in public hearings. One of the issues we have with this project is condos versus apartments. It's been out there. We've discussed it. I think I've been pretty clear on my legal opinion on where that comes into play and where it should not come into play. And just for the board's edification, obviously, it's the condos versus apartments. When we start going down the road of talking about the differences in those based on just ownership or who would be in those buildings, it's just wrong. And I would direct this board, not to kind of discuss that. And then, obviously, and again, we've had very respectful, very good meetings, very good comments from the public. But I would just caution when we start talking about this, going that area, it's not appropriate for this board to consider. I don't think we shouldn't be talking about it, period. So with that, I think we can open it up.
Okay, thank you. Before we head on to public comment, go to the order. In the interest of time, we definitely do want to hear interesting things going on in the community. Do you think we have anything for us there?
No, nothing. Not worthy.
Okay.
She would know it better than me. I'm not
After Commissioner Croner, I have one.
Yes.
If I would, before we say that there's nothing will be brought back to the workshop, I'd like to hear from the residents to see if there's any points that we as a commission have failed to bring up, because they're living the experience there. So if we can just hold off before there's no direction.
Absolutely.
That's a fair.
And that's a good point, and that is, as a matter of fact, that is the objective of public comment. It's more, and again, it's good for us to hear it here, so that when we go to public hearing, if there's anything substantial, we would give staff guidance on changing it. But again, the formal public hearing is where we will have public comment. But best to do it. Best to do what people need to say now. So good in the order. we didn't have anything from staff, Commissioner Conley?
Yeah,
mean,
I just wanted to add, the resident group that, and when many of them are here tonight, and the folks that have been at all these meetings, just so you guys know, and I know they were recognized earlier, and everybody who's participated in, the amount of time that these people have put in, and we haven't agreed on everything, and I think they've challenged us as village staff to look at things more carefully. I ultimately think it's a better project that you have before you today due to their results, but again, the time, the emails, the research that they've done has really, really helped this process. So I'm excited to hear from them, and again, the developer as well, who's also sat with us and listened to these residents' concerns. So, you know, kudos. I think the staff or this board wanted that process to happen, and I think it's helped, and we're further along today than we would have been without their commitment, where they're, you know, receiving nothing for it, but looking out for their neighbors. So, kudos to them.
Excellent point. All right. I would just echo that. I think the project sitting before us is far superior than what we've seen before. So, again, in the interest of time, we'll open it up to public comment. This is not a public hearing, so you don't have to state your name. I would just ask that you come up orderly here.
Hello, how you doing? I just wanted to bring up one point. I know since the beginning of this process, all we talked about was density, zoning, the number of unit counts, but the one thing that I really haven't seen talked about was the floor area ratio. And I know in the exceptions, the developer asked for exceptions for setback and building height. But, you know, looking at the floor area ratio for R6 multifamily zoning, it's the ratio is 0.6. The total building square feet of this new development is 298,411 square feet. That's a 0.9 FAR. Under the R6 multifamily 0.6 FAR, the total allowable building square feet is 199,375. So I guess we said we can't ask questions, but I'm just wondering why FAR was not added to the to the exceptions that were requested. It talked about setback and building height, but that's a big one too. I mean, that's one of the biggest concerns of the community is the bulk and size of these buildings. And at 298,000 square feet, that's 100,000 square feet greater than the allowable FAR under the zoning. So we've all been mired about use and ownership versus condo, but just taking a step back and looking at the size of that, that's a big building, and that's R6, and you go immediately down to our R2 zone property. So the drawings look nice, but when you take a look at when you think about it in that perspective, that's a big, massive building, massive buildings for that site. So please take that into account. The other thing too is, real estate taxes. I don't know that we've ever, I know we talked about the economic benefit. I've never seen any estimate of real estate taxes, and maybe we could see that, somewhere, like what the developer believes that the real estate taxes are for this property. The other thing too, I know in that meeting we had in August with the village and the attorney, I asked about the substantial deviation says condominium is the only use for this property. So I asked the attorney, do they have to make a specific request to change the use to multifamily? And you said yes. I didn't see that in the application. So I don't know if that needs to be included in there too, but I don't know if you can comment on it. You said you can answer questions, but should FAR be included in the exceptions that are requested?
I'll look at it. I don't know right now. I don't have the code.
It seems pretty clear to me.
It's a fair point. It's something we should look at, no doubt.
Because if anything is not mentioned in the planned unit development, you have to go to the underlying zoning, correct?
Anything is not mentioned in the plan.
Like if like any of the like the setbacks or anything is changed with the zoning in the plan unit development.
I believe that's how our code.
Yeah,
that's
so I
generally
would
how
think
it is.
FAR should be included in there. So just keep that in mind.
I'll look at it, yeah.
The size of this building. It's 300,000 square feet. So thanks.
Thank you. If we could, just so we have clarification, and again, it's not that you can't ask questions, we just want to make sure that we're not getting on a total back and forth. But you mentioned real estate taxes. Can I just get a clarification about what the question was? So we can make sure that we
like for an estimate of real estate taxes, like what they will be. Yeah, I mean, they talk about economic development of site. I asked the planning director at one time. She didn't have an answer. So the developers should be able to, rattle that off in a second, like $1 per square foot or something like that. So
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding the question so that we can, obviously the county's going to determine that.
No, but they should know. They could rattle that off in a second. Like they could say, it's $1 per square foot or something like that. If they've done their underwriting and all that stuff, they know what real estate taxes are. So I was just curious what they are.
The issue with that, I think, just from our standpoint, that's kind of out of our purview. That's something that we have no jurisdiction over as a commission here. The FAR, the question about the condo, floor area ratio and the condo deviation, certainly that's something that we have to
But
consider.
it also talks about economic benefit. That's one of them. So I was just curious what the taxes were. So I think that statement about FAR should be requested as part of the exceptions in a revised application.
That's an excellent question, and clearly we don't have the answer right now, so we'll make sure that we consider that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, if I could.
Hi, I'm Ron Hartman. I'm new to this. I've been a resident for 15 years of Tinley Park. I live in Brookside Glen West, so this does not immediately concern me. It's just because I'm over off of 88th Avenue in back of the Giorgio land site, okay? I am very, very impressed by the depth of all of the people that are here and what the job that they're trying to do, and I'm not just trying to be complimentary. This is coming from me. Thank you. Okay, I've never attended one before, and one of my main observations, because even though I'm an old guy, 76, I'm looking for the future, and one of the things that concerned me tonight that hasn't been addressed very much is the whole thing. If you look on the internet, they're talking in major cities, they're going to be banning gasoline motored cars by 2030 in many nations, and America is dragging their heels on this compared to what's going on in Europe especially. And you're talking about here for 172 inside garages, but where you have a reference to 6 electric stalls. Okay, we're on the verge of, unless Tesla and Musk go bankrupt, the wave is to go electric. And for my opinion, if you're going to do it, and this is going to be a high-priced thing, so you should have really the coming amenities on this thing. And one of the coming amenities should be adequate charging units inside that 172. I don't know what's proper or what's reasonable. Ideally would be one per dwelling unit would be for at least 144 of the 172, but maybe that's ridiculous. But if you can pipe in for everything while it's under construction, otherwise what are you going to do? Tear up everything to put electric inside for all the people? If you're not going to attract the people with the money, the ones that are going to be interested in this as something new will want all the latest amenities, and that should be something that should be considered. It's going to drive up the cost of electric. The electricians are going to love it, all the additional work, but it's also for the future of Tinley Park to really have something to brag about. So that would be something that I think should be strongly considered as to what's a reasonable ratio. For now, maybe half, but not 6, no. And all outside, or only one per building, no. No, because you're going to have 36, and at least one. You figure it out. You come up with some, just, because I'm no expert either, but I'm forward-looking, and this is the future. The internal combustion engine is on its way out. Mr. Tillerson doesn't want to hear that, but it's true. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent point there, and maybe, when we head into public hearing, I'm making an assumption here, but the developer has probably done some homework and has a basis for the number of electric charging stations that they have. Maybe they can share what their rationale is there. I would assume at some point there's a point of diminishing returns as far as what it costs you to install one versus the value of who it attracts there. But maybe they can speak to that at the public hearing.
Can I ask one more time, just to go over how many inside, how many outside of the charging stations, to address the gentleman's concern?
Yeah, 2 per building. So 1 inside, 1 outside per building.
Okay.
And we don't know the magic balance
Correct.
between that, and
Correct.
it's certainly something that we'll take a look at.
I don't know.
And I think the idea of that they can be expanded if the demand is there, we certainly would like to build that in as well, so I don't see why that should be a problem.
And I'm certain that if your residents are saying, all of a sudden they show up with 30 units, show up with Teslas, you're going to put those stands out there pretty quick. So I think we've got a commitment from the developer on that, sir. So thank you very much. Great point.
And I'm sure if you have a lot of people turning you down because you don't have them. So any further comments? Good evening.
Yeah, good night. Few questions I have. One going back to the traffic survey is, it doesn't get done by us. It gets done by county. County has more say. If you go on county website, there's 10 things that they look at when they do a traffic study. And one of them is, I don't think anybody talk about, that they do ground sampling to see if the ground can handle the weight of this building that's going up. They did that in the new Will County Sheriff that they built. All new projects almost, they do ground sampling, unless people aren't up to it. Another thing is, everything this developer has showed is making everything taller, taller, taller. We want it to come down. We don't want anything taller. And one other thing is, nobody's ever said what this is costing. Dollar amount, the apartments, the buildings, nothing. It's not free. The land's not free. And then you got the roads. The roads can't take it. Our roads, go drive down Greenfield. You'll see how beat up, how bad it is. It probably should have been paved 2 years ago. And that's where all this construction traffic's going to be going, is going to be beating everything up. And all right.
Stephen, can I just address that? You said that Greenfield is going to be I think it's Greenfield. That's the big Greenway. That's going to be finished up and that'll be repaved and taken care of.
Yep, so
2020.
No. That's 80th Avenue, the bridge. This will be.
You forgot, we got that grocery store going in too on 100. That's going to put more traffic out there. That Woodmore grocery store that you approved already.
Right, Woodman's. Well, we haven't approved anything yet on that, sir.
I thought that was approved.
No, they're still looking at that. I think nothing's been
Because the
presented.
land was sold.
we have not received plans for Woodman's that have been submitted for planning commission review yet. Nothing's finished.
Well, if all of them go, there is going to be a major traffic problem.
So Commissioner Croner, just to
Yes.
answer your question here, if you look on the screen, you can see this is the portion of the road that will be completed as part of this project. So right now it stops about right here for the pump house access road by the townhomes. It'll be completed from here all the way around and connecting with 191st. So anyone in this vicinity will be able to use this. It's a public street and it will go all the way up to 191st. And I mentioned earlier, and our resident mentioned also intersection improvements, roadway improvements to 191st and 80th. They are planned. They are working on budgeting, designing, and constructing those. But because it is the county road, the county prioritize certain projects, and it takes time for them to do that. So just know that this will be something that is complete as a part of this particular development, but the intersection improvements and the road improvements to 191st and 80th may take a little bit more time.
'Cause it's
but
outside of our
already-
jurisdiction.
It's anticipated that those need to be completed. So we're farther along in the process than we could potentially be if they didn't even have that plan.
And who will be funding the Magnuson Lane improvement?
That's the responsibility of the developer of Brookside Glen. So I believe Malone,
Okay.
and he's aware of that.
Okay, so I want to continue on with public comment. But I don't know how many folks would like to speak, so we'll try to keep these on point, and what we're trying to do is make sure that everyone's heard, and if we have any items, as a few of these that we've heard, we want to make sure if there's any research or preparation in advance of the public hearing that needs to be done, that we're tracking these. But we're going to try not to get too deep into the responses.
That's fine. Michael Stocklos, I'm resident of Brookside Glen. The traffic study just talks about today's traffic. Doesn't talk about 5 years from now, if and when that bridge gets built over I-80. That's going to be a 4-lane road that's going to condense down back to 2 lanes south of 191st Street. So that's going to be a big impact on the amount of traffic that's coming through that area. But the traffic study that they did talks about today's traffic. So it doesn't talk about the future. You know, we're supposed to be planning for the future and not reacting to the future. So that's one of the areas, you know, that you know, we're worried about. The second thing is when and if this process or proposal gets approved, the residents of Brookside Glen would like 191st Street finished first, so all construction traffic will go down there and not east down Greenway through the existing townhomes. And lastly, nowhere in this, from what we understand, the subject parcel does not own the detention area. So they're relying on someone else. So is there going to be some sort of provisions built into the agreement that the owner of the detention area is going to landscape that area, maintain it? Because right now, he doesn't do crap. Excuse my language. If you go by that area right now, it's all overgrown. You know, there are issues, you know, code enforcement issues that say, you know, certain things should be mowed, you know, weeds that kept, he hasn't done crap for 5 years at least. And, you know, Trustee Glotz is looking into that. You know, we've talked about that previously, but in the meantime, he's an absentee owner. The area looks blighted. Even the subject parcel is blighted. They haven't maintained anything. Even if code enforcement says you have to maintain within 10 feet of the road, they haven't done anything. So these are things that, you know, between now and the future, you know, we should be looking at, especially, you know, finishing the road, the access to 191st Street, so all construction traffic enters through there and not down off of 80th Avenue, you know, coming through the townhouse area.
So one point there, with respect to the property that is not for this particular development, I think you stated it correctly that sounds like a code enforcement issue, and it sounds like the village officials are on that. So I think that's good. That's kind of out of the consideration for what we're here, but it's a valid point.
It's a point. I'm sorry. My point was that written into the approval would be that this area has to be maintained by, you know, the developer and not by Malone or whoever owns it. You know, it should be one person overseeing the, you know, the approval. We haven't seen any landscape plans for that area, whether that's going to be, you know, it should all be one complete, you know, landscape, you know, set of plans.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think that would be an enforcement issue. I don't think it necessarily, I think the ordinances exist.
It's part of the original PUD.
Yeah.
So there's engineering and there's bonds guaranteeing it.
So, but the other item you brought up is that it's worth discussing or having an answer when we come back to public hearing is the plans for construction traffic, whether all construction traffic construction traffic would be prohibited from going east, and they would all go north, you know. I don't know. what the
It's usually
plans
worked
would be.
out with engineering, you know, through the building permit process.
Right.
It's not something we usually get involved in.
Again, but it's a concern of the residents. I want to make sure that as we head into it, the developer's aware that it's a concern.
But from everything I've gone through with all these things, it can be written into the approval.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's an excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I always have to do that. It's a really beautiful looking project, and I'm sure that it's going to be in the tens of millions of dollars to finish. One of the concerns that's come up is LLCs, I think by their very nature, aren't the most transparent ownership structures. And we're not exactly sure as a community how much experience the developer has in tackling a $20 or $30 million project. And I think by their own admission early on, the answer was they haven't. And so the concern in the community would be, what kind of guarantee do we have from a completion standpoint? And is there some sort of performance bond that needs to be put up? Does the community, does the village, I should say, excuse me, do they have requirements of a developer that they have a certain amount of experience of what they're proposing to do? And that's been a question that we really haven't had a great answer to, just a lot of, that's a good question.
I hate to respond to, thank you. I hate to respond to you in this way, but that really is a great question. But it is noted, and I do believe that the village has performance bond requirements. I don't know what those are, but we could perhaps have somebody speak to that when we get to public hearing.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak this evening?
Listen, I'll just say real quick that I'm upset about the Cubs, and I want to get out of here. These guys asked all my questions. We've gone through this. We appreciate your guys' time. If you guys have questions of us, I think everybody knows how to get a hold of us. Update your website. It still says 7:30 for these meetings. So I actually publicized this event wrong. So if you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. And other than that, thanks, and look forward to the Plan Commission.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent point about the website. Do we have all the,
think about it.
do we have all the correct commissioners on that listing? We don't.
We'll double check. I've got to update my name.
Okay. So was that the last of the public comment there?
I get one more question.
Sure, come on.
I forgot about, with all these cars being in these garages, all the carbon monoxide you're gonna have. Because the garage doors to be way down here and way over here. What are you gonna do with all those fumes?
That's an excellent point. I would.
Well, they don't have just that one thing.
So I would.
Park outside, you're saying?
I would make an assumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that when we go to engineering, they're going to have some life safety specifications. So there's some math involved. Okay, but it's something to note. Okay, if there are no further public comments there, thank you very much this evening, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded by Commissioner Curran Nagel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.